Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the DN WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Tokoyami Had a Younger Sister. All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details, and go to the story link to say hi to the author. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now, let's get into the fanfic. Oi, Tokoyami, does this belong to you? Tokoyami turned from the front of the room and Aizawa to see Bakugo, late to class, standing in the doorway holding the hand of a small girl. She had a bird head with long gold and crimson feathers. She released the blonde's hand when she saw the jet black bird. Fumi. She rushed over to Tokoyami, who quickly scooped her up into a tight embrace. Sora, what are you doing here? Tokoyami asked. Sora frowned. Mom forgot to pick me up from school today. Shoji made a tentacle eye that darted between the two. Is she your sister? Yes, this is my little sister Sora. Tokoyami sighed. Did you call Dad? He asked Sora. Sora shook her head. No, I don't want to hear him complain again. I walked to Mom's house first, but I saw she was still taking her medicine, so I thought I would come visit you instead. Which medicine? Tokoyami asked through gritted teeth. He could feel everybody's eyes on him and his sister. He was a relatively private person. He didn't want the entire class to learn what sorts of demons he battled in his home life. However, his sister was more important than keeping any of his classmates from prying into his personal business. It was the whiskey one, I think, she said, looking Tokoyami in the eyes. Fumi, can I stay with you? I promise I will be quiet and good. I even packed all my stuff before leaving. I have clothes and snacks and everything. She hopped off of Tokoyami's lap and took off her backpack. Dark shadow emerged from Tokoyami's chest and helped the small girl set up her colors and placed a pair of headphones on her head. Tokoyami looked up Aizawa. I'm not sure if that's allowed. The teacher stared at his student and sighed. He remembered his experience visiting the Tokoyami household. He had pulled up to the residence without all might. Tokoyami met his teacher outside. He seemed rather relieved it was just his homeroom teacher. Before even entering, Tokoyami bowed and apologized for his parents. Aizawa had assumed it was simply Tokoyami being sensitive. He soon learned that he was wrong. Aizawa could smell the alcohol in the air. He could hear a man yelling in the next room. Tokoyami led him into the living room, where he saw a skinny man with dark hair yelling at a woman with a red bird head. She was slumped over sideways on the couch. We told his teacher to come over here, so you wouldn't be as embarrassing. But now this is even worse than if you didn't show up. Tokoyami's father yelled. The woman didn't respond with words. Instead, she made a long groaning noise. Aizawa decided that now would be a good time to make his presence known. Hello, Aizawa said with a bow. The man took a moment to stare at his son and the teacher in silence before furiously yelling at the intoxicated woman. Tokoyami shook his head and took Aizawa into the kitchen. Aizawa was shocked to see a small, red and gold feathered girl sitting at the table. She was trying to eat some cereal with one hand, while pressing her headphones against her ears. Tokoyami tapped the girl on her shoulder. She glanced up and removed her headphones. Aizawa could hear the loud metal music pounding through the speakers. Who is this Fumi? This is Aizawa-sensei. He is also the pro-hero Eraserhead. I'm going to get Dad to calm down. Can you keep Sensei company? Though Tokoyami's tone was calm, his quirk had crept out of his back. Dark shadow glared back into the living room. When the girl agreed, Tokoyami left the kitchen, dark shadow growing large. Aizawa decided to start a conversation. What's your name? Sora. How old are you, Sora? 7. I take it you are Tokoyami's sister. I am. She nodded with a big bite in her mouth. Fumi and Dark Shadow's sister. Do you know why I am here? Aizawa asked. Sora nodded with a deep frown. You want Tokoyami to move away. I want to help keep Tokoyami safe as he trains to be a hero. In order to do that, the school has created dorms for all the students to live in and be safe. Sora stared aggressively at her cereal. The sounds of Tokoyami and his father yelling back and forth could be heard in the background. Aizawa cleared his throat. I'm here to discuss this with the family. Since everyone else seems occupied, I will start with you. What are your thoughts? I don't like it, the small child admitted. However, I do know that if Fumi and Dark Shadows become heroes soon, then they can buy a home, and I can live with them. It will not be fun to be here without him, but I can endure it. The yelling stopped, as Aizawa smirked. He's going to be a great hero. I'm sure he will graduate as soon as he can. The memory faded as Tokoyami stared at him with a worried look. If she can entertain herself through class, then it won't be a problem, Aizawa stated. Tokoyami smiled and bowed his head. Thank you, sensei. And thank you, Bakugo, for bringing her to class. Yeah, whatever. Bakugo walked to his desk and slumped down in his seat. Let's continue, Aizawa said, and turned back to the board towards his lecture. Class came and went. The teachers switched in and out of the room. Tokoyami maintained his notes, while keeping an eye on Sora. Finally, lunch arrived. Aizawa's phone rang at the end of the last period. He looked down to see he had a message that could not be ignored. I am apparently needed for the rest of the afternoon, so your afternoon classes will need to be postponed to a later date. The class cheered, and Aizawa raised his hand to speak. Before the rest of you leave, Tokoyami, may I speak with you in the hallway? Of course. Tokoyami nudged his sister. She pulled off her headphones and looked at Tokoyami. I need to talk to Aizawa-sensei. Will you be all right in here with the class alone? Sora nodded and stood up. Can I sit next to Bakugo? I like Bakugo. He reminds me of Dad, Sora said as she gathered her things into her backpack. Tokoyami looked at Bakugo, while the rest of the class shared concerned looks. Only if Bakugo doesn't mind. The blonde shrugged. Whatever. Sora walked over to Bakugo, and Tokoyami exited the room. As soon as Tokoyami left the room, Ashido and Hagakure leapt from their seats and rushed to the small girl. They leaned over and pressed their heads together. Hi, Sora, I'm Ashido, she pointed to Hagakure. This invisible chick is Hagakure. You are so cute. I can't believe Tokoyami didn't introduce us to you sooner. The invisible girl touched the small child's head. Sora did not like that. Don't touch me, Sora screamed as loud as she could. What is wrong with you two? Bakugo shouted over the girl's shrills. Tokoyami pushed in the door with Dark Shadow out in front of him. They were both completely distraught. What happened? Fucking raccoon eyes and invisible chick touched her, Bakugo explained. I don't know how to handle kids. Dark Shadow extended out through the class and picked up the small girl. Sora grabbed a hold of his arm as he brought the girl over to her brother. Fumi, what is wrong with them? They are very animated, Fumikage explained, placing a hand on her head. Everyone please provide Sora her personal space. He brought the girl over to Tsuyu. This is Tsuyu Asui. She has 2 siblings. She will be sure to make sure no one invades your personal space. Sora stared at the frog girl's face. You promise? Ribbit, I promise. Sora sat back down, this time under Tsuyu's desk. Okay. Thank you, Fumikage said to Tsuyu, before walking back out to finish his conversation with Aizawa. Tsuyu looked to the rest of the group. Just let her get comfortable with us. If everyone just talks, she will get comfortable. It will be okay. Koder rubbed the back of his neck. It's just strange that Tokoyami never brought her up in conversation. He probably just wanted to keep his family life to himself, said Todoroki. I don't talk to him much, mumbled Midoriya. I feel like should be a better friend and ask him more about his life. Hey, idiots, Bakugo shouted. The kid is still in here. Just because she has headphones on doesn't mean she can't hear. The group turned to see Sora staring at each one of them intently. She stood up and moved her headphone around her neck. No sound came from them. It's nice to see Fumikage has a lot of friends that care about him. Of course, we care about him, saluted Eda. We are all passionate UA students in the top hero course class. We must protect each other and our school's reputation. Sora smiled sweetly. You're funny. You must have a funny quirk. My quirk isn't funny. My quirk is precious. See? Ida lifted a leg up on the chair of his desk. I have engines in my legs that allow me to move with great speed and agility. Each member of the class took this moment to share their quirk. When they got to Ochako, she chose to demonstrate before explaining. She gently tapped Sora on the back, and the girl began to float. I can make things float, Ochako said. Sora giggled as she lifted off the ground. I'm flying. At that moment, Midoriya moved next to Ochako. Wow, you've gotten really good at controlling that, Midoriya noted. His arm swung to his side and grazed against her hip. Ochako blushed and jumped, pressing her fingers together. As she did, Sora dropped, rapidly approaching the ground. Tsuyu extended her tongue and grabbed the child's leg. Her arm hit against one of the desks. A large snap echoed through the room, and the girl began to wail. Outside in the hallway, Aizawa and Tokoyami spoke in hushed voices. I can guarantee she can stay tonight and even tomorrow, Aizawa said. I will have to report that she is here and why she is here. I understand, Tokoyami nodded. Thank you for allowing this. Don't thank me yet, Aizawa said. I am unaware of any legal circumstances. I will have to call Child Protective Services. It's fine. This was my mother's last opportunity. At this point my father will gain full custody. That doesn't make me any less concerned, Aizawa stated. I have seen him yell, and I have seen you yell back. I don't want him to be a poor influence on you. Tokoyami nodded. I understand. Aizawa placed a hand on Tokoyami's shoulder. Hang in there. You're being an excellent older brother. Thank you, Tokoyami said with a smile. Suddenly, a large crash and a wail came from inside the room. Oh no, Tokoyami groaned. Aizawa sighed. It hasn't even been 5 minutes. Tokoyami rushed back through the door to see Sora clutching her arm. Tears were streaming down her face, dripping onto the injured limb. It was an accident, Ochako and Midoriya yelled together. Tokoyami rolled his eyes and calmly walked over to Sora. He looked at her arm and sighed. This will take more than tears to fix. He turned his head to Bakugo. Bakugo, your assistance is required. Bakugo scoffed and walked over to Tokoyami. Yeah, what now? I need you to light Sora on fire, Tokoyami stated flatly. What? The rest of the class yelled. Tokoyami rolled his eyes. It's part of her quirk. Bakugo glanced at Tokoyami before raising his hand. All right. The blonde began to spark off tiny explosions, sending them at the girl. Sora's arm began to crackle and hiss. His skin shriveled up like burnt paper. Slowly, she turned into nothing but her clothes on top of a pile of ash. Ah, she's burnt to a crisp, the rest of the class shouted. Tokoyami just stared at the pile of ash. There was a sudden pop, and then a flash of bright gold and red. The light blinded all the onlookers. Once the light had faded, the class was able to look and see Sora, healthy and bubbly, standing in the spot she once was. Sora rushed over to Bakugo and grabbed the palm of his hand. Do that again. Bakugo, slightly puzzled, sparked up his hand, and the child grabbed flame. His body fell to ash again, and with another bright flash, she emerged once more. That's enough, Sora, Tokoyami scolded. But Bakugo doesn't need matches, she gasped. We can play Ring Around the Roses. Perhaps later, said Tokoyami. His sister's face looked disheartened. Everyone is hungry, Sora. It is time for lunch. He extended his hand, and the small child gathered her things and rushed over to her brother. Wait, called Midoriya. How did she do that? Oh, Sora's a phoenix, Tokoyami explained. He bent down and picked up his sister. Now, let's get some lunch. He walked away, leaving the entire class stunned that such a quirk could exist. Tokoyami always found it fascinating to see what type of people his sister would gravitate towards. When she was in a small group, setting the variety of people she spoke to varied. Once surrounded by a large group, she was not willing to let go of her brother. Tokoyami was able to get food from the cafeteria for both of them thanks to the assistance of Dark Shadow, before coming and taking a seat at his usual table. The rest of class 1 slowly gathered around the table. It wasn't unusual for the class to eat together like this, but this was certainly not the occasion. Tokoyami knew it was his classmates trying to be supportive. To him, it was rather heartwarming. To Sora, it was intimidating. So many strange people gathering around. They all tried to get her to join their conversations. The small child just sank into her seat until Tokoyami handed her a skewer with beef and vegetables on it. As his little sister began eating, Tokoyami watched as Shoji and Koda went to sit on the opposite end of the table with Midoriya and Ida. He sighed inwardly. I hope they are not disheartened that I never told them much about our family, he thought to Dark Shadow. Secrets don't make friends, Fumigage, Dark Shadow stated. Though we know equally as much about them as they do about you. I suppose you're right. Sora was clearly hungry. Though she had packed plenty of applesauce containers for snacks, the way the small girl was eating showed it'd been a while since she had a cooked meal. Tokoyami eyed his hungry sister. She was eating was concerning. Is there more? Sora asked. Dark Shadow handed the girl another kebab, and she devoured the stick. The shadow wrapped around her, sandwiching Sora between itself and Tokoyami. She was happy to be curled up in the dark hug. How did you get into the school? Tokoyami asked Sora after she finished her second kebab. Did Hound Hero let you in? Sora took a third kebab from Dark Shadow. He didn't know he let me in. He just got distracted by something else. I just sort of walked in. That's concerning, Tokoyami mumbled through a large mouthful of rice. How did you find Bakugo? He was yelling, Sora explained. Some weird guy was talking to him, and I heard Bakugo tell him he was a pussy-ass wannabe hero with no quirk of his own. She said it just as abrasive as Bakugo would. Language, Tokoyami scolded. But that's how he said it. Besides, I knew he was good because the guy was making fun of Class 1A. That's your class. So if Bakugo was standing up to him, then he would be willing to tell me where you were. That's a good interpretation, a cool and soft voice said from across the table. Tokoyami looked up to Class 1B's Monoma standing in front of him and his sister. He had a smug look across his blonde face. Sora ruffled the feathers on the back of her neck. That's the pussy guy. Are you a mockingbird, little one? Monoma asked. Because you are making a mockery of yourself and your brother. Just as Tokoyami started to move up, two large hands wrapped themselves around the blonde. The only one making a mockery is you, a red-haired girl stated. She turned to Tokoyami and Sora. Sorry about Monoma. He hates not being able to come up with the right insults at the right time. Sora scooted further away in her seat. She crouched lower in the table, burying her head in Tokoyami's side. Tokoyami, is that your little sister? Kendo stepped forward, causing the girl to cling more to Tokoyami's side. Tokoyami nodded. Yes, this is my sister, Sora. Kendo leaned down and saw the girl was hiding from her. I didn't mean to scare her. It's fine, Kendo, Tokoyami said. Thank you for your assistance. Anytime. The redhead walked off, carrying the blubbering blonde away. Sora poked her head up. Is she gone? Yes, Tokoyami nodded. Why were you hiding? She looks a lot like Dad's new girlfriend. Tokoyami froze. Dad's new girlfriend? When did he get a girlfriend? A few weeks ago. She always makes Dad go with her on her work trips. Is that where Dad is right now? Sora nodded. Yeah, if I would have called, all he would do is yell and complain. There is nothing he can do from that far. He shouldn't be leaving you alone with Mom. I'm only alone with Mom part of the time. Tokoyami sighed. School doesn't count. I'm not talking about school. The child placed her kebab down. She curled her knees up to her chest and rocked slightly. Tokoyami noticed the shift her body language. She was slowly entering within herself. She was hiding something. Who else is with you? Tokoyami stared in silence as he waited for Sora to elaborate. He was nervous. When she withdrew like this, something bad was happening. You don't think it's her, do you? Dark Shadow thought to Tokoyami. I hope not, was Tokoyami's response. He continued to wait until Sora finally whispered. Grandma is there sometimes. Shit, Tokoyami thought. This was what he thought. I thought Grandma wasn't allowed to come over to watch you anymore. Grandma can't watch me when I'm alone, Sora corrected. When Mom is home, I'm not alone. Tokoyami wrapped an arm around Sora. I'm sorry. I don't need your pity, Sora squeaked. Her hands said otherwise as she grabbed a hold of her brother's hand. They hugged each other for a while. Dark Shadow even joined the embrace for a moment. These seats taken, Tokoyami turned and saw Kirishima, Zero, and Bakugo standing across from them. Tokoyami smiled. Please. Bakugo. Sora hopped up and hugged his leg. Bakugo stared at the small child attached to him. What? Sit next to me. She jumped back up on the seat and pointed to the chair next to her. TSC, sure, he mumbled. He walked to the chair she was pointing to and sat down. Wow, Bakugo. I'm so proud that you made a friend without Kirishima's help. Zero smirked as he took a bite. Bakugo growled, but decided to ignore the tape boy. Kirishima, however, joined in on the fun. Don't be jealous, Zero. Dude's a natural with kids. It's not nice to joke with other people's feelings, Sora said, staring at Kirishima and Zero. Especially if it is mean suggesting that a third party isn't smart enough to know you making fun of them. Kirishima and Zero both ogled at the girl, while Bakugo took a bite of his food with a very smug look on his face. Tokoyami shook his head, but couldn't help but laugh. Sora was sensitive, but also quite defensive of people she liked. Do you want another kebab? Tokoyami asked her. Yeah, Sora grabbed the food and began to scarf it down. Damn, breath, kid. Bakugo eyed the girl as she ate. Bakugo, you can't cuss at a kid, Zero reprimanded. What? Bakugo spoke with a half-full mouth. It's like she hasn't eaten in days. That's not true, Sora corrected. I've been eating cereal. Bakugo's eyebrow rose slightly. Just cereal? Sora nodded as she finished the next kebab. She reached for one more, which Tokoyami rapidly handed her. He shot a knowing look to Bakugo, who simply nodded and continued eating. So you just ate cereal? Nothing else? The blonde asked. Shiro and Kirishima did their best to change their expressions from concerned, but they had no poker face. Tokoyami sharpened his stare, causing the pair to flinch. Tokoyami couldn't let his sister know how concerned he actually was. He needed to remain calm, and so did everyone else. Bakugo was far more skilled at this, either not actually caring or being able to remain as neutral as possible. Sora seemed to be responding well to him. Well, I had applesauce too, and whatever that had at lunch for school. But otherwise it was cereal at home. That sound like a weird meal. Applesauce and cereal, Bakugo commented while he continued to eat. His eyes were straight ahead, and not at the girl. But then I only needs 1 spoon, Sora argued. Bakugo shrugged and continued eating. Kirishima and Shiro tried to fill the air with light-hearted conversation, but all fell into stale silence. Sora leaned her head against her brother's side and covered her ears with her hands. Tokoyami looked around. The cafeteria had somehow gotten busier. There were a lot of people now. He leaned his head down towards her. Want to go so where I stay when I am here? She nodded and hopped out of the seat. She stretched her arms up to Tokoyami. He picked her up, with one arm, stacking his dishes with his other hand, and the help of Dark Shadow. Enjoy your afternoon. Tokoyami nodded to the remaining group at the table. The small girl yawned and placed her head on Tokoyami's shoulder. I'm tired, Fumi. Tokoyami chuckled. After everything you just ate? I'd be surprised if you were not. When Tokoyami arrived back to his dorm, Sora was sound asleep. Tokoyami unlocked his room and placed his sister on his bed, and draped the comforter over her body. Tokoyami then took a seat on the bed. He brought one knee to his chest and straightened the other. He tilted his head back and closed his eyes. Dark Shadow poked his head up from Tokoyami's chest. You are anxious. I am. Tokoyami nodded with his thoughts. You can't be thinking of quitting. We just got our provisional license. But can I leave her to suffer like this? Tokoyami pointed to Sora. She can't deal with our parents on her own. Dark Shadow sighed. Do you really think it is necessary? Tokoyami nodded. I don't really see much of a choice. We have to drop out of UA and go back home. Tokoyami realized he must have dozed off momentarily when he was jolted awake by a loud banging on the door. He quickly jumped from the bed and went to the door. He turned to look to see if his sister was awake. Sora sprung awake as well. Her head dared around the room, remembering where she was. She looked down, her eyes watering. I'm sorry, she sniffled. You're fine, Sora. Someone is just at the door. Dark Shadow shot out of his back to console the small girl as he opened the door. To his surprise, there stood Bakugo. Bakugo, why are you here? Bakugo shoved a backpack into Tokoyami's chest. You left this at the lunch table. Thanks, Tokoyami said with a slight bow. Bakugo looked as if he was going to say something but stopped when the sounds of a child sobbing made it to the door. What the hell happened to her? Tokoyami turned to see Dark Shadow wrapped around Sora. The phoenix had her head resting on Dark Shadow's back. I'm sorry, Fumi. Please don't make me take a bath with Grandma. I promise I'll clean it. Don't make me take a bath. No bath, please. What the hell? Bakugo muttered. Tokoyami stared at Sora. What was she apologizing about? What did she feel bad about? Sora, Grandma is not here. Why do you need a bath? I don't understand. Why would you take a bath with your grandma? Bakugo asked. The girl continued to sob over the shadow wrapped around her. Finally, after a minute, Dark Shadow spoke to him from within. The bed is wet. Tokoyami's eyes grew wide. Of course, she wet the bed. This would be a horribly vulnerable moment for her. How was he supposed to handle this situation? How was he even supposed to clean his bed? Calm Sora first. We can figure everything else later, Dark Shadow instructed. You are right. She's most important right now. Tokoyami walked over to Sora and wrapped her arms around her. Sora, it is okay. I didn't mean to, Sora hiccuped. I know, and it will be all right. I have laundry to do. It will all be fine. Do I have to take a bath? Grandma always makes me take a bath if I wet the bed. We only have showers here, Tokoyami informed her. You will need to clean up. It's not healthy to sit in filthy clothes. She sniffled again. Am I allowed to clean up by myself? The realization of everything that Sora was alluding to finally clicked in Bakugu's mind. Holy shit, he whispered. Of course, Tokoyami said. Let me show you where the girls' showers are. No, no girl showers. I don't want to be by girls. Tokoyami froze. Where on earth could he take her? Every bathroom that entered his mind was either women's or men's. He couldn't walk into the women's bathroom with her. But what if one of the girls were there? Could he get Sora to trust Asui to help her in there? Pick her up, Bakugu said as he grabbed the backpack filled with Sora's things. We can go clear out the guy's bathroom downstairs. Of course, Tokoyami gasped. He picked up Sora with Dark Shadow and brought her close to himself. The three walked down through the common area towards the guy's bathroom. The 6 girls were sitting on the couches chatting away when they all passed by. Hey, Mina waved. We're having girl time if you want to join Sora. No, Sora yelled. She began to cry again. Tokoyami carefully wrapped his arms around her head and shot the pink girl a death glare. You don't have to join anyone. You are going to get cleaned up. I can go by myself, right? She asked through muffled sniffles. Yes, you will be by yourself. No one will go with you. They approached the guy's bathroom. Voices echoed from within. Bakugu snorted and marched into the bathroom with a menacing glare. Get out, he yelled. Faster than lightning, Kaminari and Minted dashed out of the bathroom with their toiletries in hand. The girls squealed as they came out, because they were both down to just their underwear. Bakugu exited the bathroom. It's clear. Tokoyami was speechless. Not only was kindness seemingly out of character for Bakugu, it was out of character for anyone towards he and his sister. All Tokoyami could do was mutter, thanks, to Bakugu as he carried Sora into the bathroom. Bakugu must have turned to crowd now out front. None of you bastards better enter until they leave. Got it. Tokoyami set Sora down and walked into the shower stalls for the dorm. There were 5 with curtains, a long adjustable head, and a stool to sit. There are no baths, said Sora. Nope, just showers, Tokoyami said as he placed her down and walked into one of the showers. He turned on the water and pointed the nozzle towards the ground. I'll close the curtain, then you can get undressed. Just drop your clothes out here. When you're done, turn this knob all the way this way. If you need help, ask and I will send in Dark Shadow. He walked over to where his toiletries lay and grabbed Rhodes and a spare towel he had left in here as well. He handed shampoo and soap to Sora. Sora nodded and walked into the shower. She pulled the curtain closed. He could hear her struggling to get her clothes off easily, but did not ask for any assistance. Fumi, she said as she tossed her clothes out from the curtain. Yes. Bakugu is nicer than Dad. Yes, he is. Are most people nicer than Dad? Tokoyami thought on this one. He heard the sounds of the shower hose spraying wild in many directions. Usually. She didn't give him a response. He just listened to the small girl grumble about as she tried to navigate the shower head. Tokoyami plopped down and took a seat on the floor. Dark Shadow crawled out and nuzzled his face against Tokoyami's. The teen pet his quirk and sighed, staring into the newly formed mist. You shouldn't feel guilty, Dark Shadow informed him. I do though, thought Tokoyami. Sora shouldn't have to go through this alone. You went through it alone, Dark Shadow reminded him. No, I didn't. I had you. Whether or not we had figured out how to omit you, I still had you there to comfort and reassure me when things were in fact wrong. Dark Shadow sighed. We should be protecting her. Tokoyami nodded. We should. What kind of hero doesn't protect the ones he loves? Dark Shadow didn't respond. The two sat in silence. They just listened and waited for Sora to finish her shower, alone. Aizawa was always surprised when he got away with a lie to his class. He had been texting Nezu. The arrival of Tokoyami's sister was most concerning to him. Mizu's reply was to hold an emergency class, a faculty meeting. I know I have interrupted the flow of our normal day. The principal spoke from his chair in the large conference room. But the appearance of Miss Sora Tokoyami is troubling to say the least. Aizawa, you have been to the Tokoyami residency. Can you tell us about your experience? Aizawa nodded. At first I thought Fumikage Tokoyami was just being sensitive when he apologized to me as soon as I arrived. When I entered, I found his father yelling at his heavily intoxicated mother. She couldn't even speak. Tokoyami then brought me to the kitchen where Sora was sitting, drowning out the yelling with her headphones and loud music. Tokoyami went to calm his father down, leaving me to talk with Sora. Overall, it is not a happy home environment. Geez, groaned All Might. I thought he was just putting up the goth persona for his quirk. I couldn't imagine his home life being so intense. That's not all, Nezu interrupted. I did some research into his family past. His grandmother has previously been arrested for rape charges involving a minor. The group of teachers all looked wide-eyed. The principal continued. This resulted in the grandmother serving 5 years in jail, as well as being placed on the sex offender list. How old is Sora? President Mike asked. 7, answered Aizawa. All Might placed a finger to his chin. That means that either she was assaulted when she was 2 or Tokoyami. The room fell silent. All Might's voice failed to finish the sentence. If the incident that involved the grandmother's arrest involved Tokoyami, then he would probably have survivor's guilt, Midnight stated. Snipe nodded. He is probably ready to go home and deal with this situation on his own. I have seen Tokoyami deal with his parents before. He and his father had a yelling match that was probably as loud as one of Mike's attacks, Aizawa says. If he tries to go home, it will only be worse for him. Does this mean we have the authority to intervene? Ectoplasm asked. Fumikage is under our care, but Sora is not. Nizo raised a paw up in the air. I personally contacted the legal department to look into all contracts we had the parents sign. I don't believe I have any doubt that the child's presence doesn't call for some sort of action from us. To what level we can act is another story. We will need to look into that. After all, this wouldn't be the first child we brought on this campus for safety. At that moment, the conference door opened with an explosion. As the smoke cleared, the teachers saw Bakugo standing in the doorway. The blonde shoved his hands in his pockets as he walked into the room. You could have knocked, Aizawa stated. And you could be doing your job, snapped Bakugo. I am doing my job, Aizawa said. What about my job am I not doing? Right now, Tokoyami is dealing with a child going through some shit. It doesn't take a genius to see what's happening. And it's not his responsibility. That leaves you, Aizawa. All the teachers just stared at the flaming blonde. Aizawa stood. In a strange way, Aizawa was proud of Bakugo. He was outwardly showing his concerns for another's well-being. I'm going to need to talk to Tokoyami alone. Are you willing to watch Sora? She seems to enjoy your company. Yeah, I'll watch her. Just do your job. Aizawa nodded and looked back towards the group of teachers. They all seemed to have come to the same realization that Aizawa did. The teacher walked out of the room with Bakugo, both with their hands in their pockets, and minds focused on the problem needing to be faced in the dorm. Once out of the shower, Sora did not leave Tokoyami's side. She followed him as he brought the clothes she was previously wearing and all blankets and sheets from his bed to the laundry room. It didn't bother Tokoyami. He was used to having a shadow. The one thing he didn't know was how to clean his bed. He couldn't make a big deal of it, however. It was clear Sora was feeling pretty guilty. As Tokoyami and Sora walked back to his room, he was greeted by Tsuyu standing outside his door. Asui? Tokoyami asked. Hey Tokoyami. Hello Sora. Tsuyu waved to Sora, who quickly hid behind her brother's legs. You can call me Tsu, Tokoyami. Right, he nodded. How can I help you? I thought you may want this, Ribbit. She extended a bottle to Tokoyami, who took it. The label read Kids and Pets Accident Removed. My quirk makes me create slime. Depending on my mood, it can sometimes leave an ammonia smell. This stuff gets rid of that. Tokoyami looked shocked. How did you... When you walked by, I could pick up the smell. At first, I thought it was me. But when I realized it wasn't, I put the pieces together as to why you were heading to the bathroom. Tokoyami smiled. Thank you. Tsuyu smiled. It's not a problem. Sometimes it's hard to be the older sibling. She crouched down to Sora's level. It's also hard to be the younger sibling too. Sora hugged Tokoyami's legs tighter. She wasn't screaming, which was a good sign. Tokoyami bent over and ran his fingers through Sora's feathers. Tsu is nice. You can trust her. She and I have fought together several times. Sora stared into Tsuyu's dark eyes. She is different. Tokoyami chuckled. Yes, she is. Is different good? She's not like any of the other girls. She is not like the other girls. She is not nearly as loud. Tsu is a hero. That's all she wants to do. She respects people. Here, watch. Tokoyami gestured to Tsuyu to stand up. She did, and once she did, Tokoyami wrapped his arms around the girl in a hug. Tsuyu smiled and reciprocated the motion, placing his hands on Tokoyami's back. See? Tokoyami spoke with his head resting on Tsuyu's shoulder. She is nice. Her hands are staying in one place. It is just a hug. Tsu respects my space, and I respect hers. As Tokoyami released the girl, Sora stepped out from behind Tokoyami. I don't have to hug her, do I? Only if you want to hug me, Ribbit, said Tsuyu. I do not, Sora stated. And I can respect that. Tsuyu turned back to Tokoyami. Keep it for as long as you need. I will be in the common room. Hopefully we will see you two for dinner. She waved and walked towards the elevator. See you then? Thank you, Tsu. Tokoyami turned and opened the door to his room. As Sora rushed in, he read the label on the bottle. Dark Shadow, get me a large towel. The Shadow opened the closet and pulled out a dark towel. He brought it to his host, who took the towel. Thank you. Fumi, are you mad at me? Sora's voice squeaked. Tokoyami looked up from the bottle. He saw his sister was hiding under his desk. Tokoyami shook his head. I have no reason to be mad at you. But I messed up the bed. And this bottle here will fix it. He opened up the bottle and sprinkled the contents on the matters. He then laid the towel on top of the spill and pressed down. We just need to leave that for an hour or two. That's perfect because that's when all the laundry will be done. Sora crawled out from under the desk and sat on the floor. She hugged her knees and began to rock back and forth. Tokoyami looked around his room for something, and his eyes landed on his guitar. Did I tell you I learned how to play the guitar? No. Will you play it? Sure. Tokoyami grabbed the guitar and took a seat on the floor. He began to strum a gentle beat with the strings. Sora stared at him for a while before pouncing on his knee. No, Fumi. You have to sing if you play the guitar. Plenty of people play the guitar without singing, Tokoyami argued. But you can sing. If you can sing, you should sing. She pressed her forehead against her brother's face to show her seriousness. You need to sing. Sing our song. Tokoyami smiled. Fine. Again, he picked up the guitar and began to strum. The chords were soft and melancholic, as he began to sing in his deep bass tone. A shooting star can only shine bright when she is surrounded by no light. She needs the darkness to show that she is strong. When shadows creep in at night, the moon will keep her in his sights. He's always watching, even when he is gone. She never needs to fear for too long. Sora stood and danced as Tokoyami strummed on his guitar. She began to sing with Tokoyami as the chorus began. Dance across the skies. We'll have 1,000,000 years to fly. The sun will rise, and we will have another day. They keep saying they're going to try. Every day we have more reasons to cry. Remember, we will laugh and run away. We will find a safe place for us to lay. We're going to be happy far away. Tomorrow is always another day. That's a nice song, a friendly voice spoke from the doorway. Tokoyami turned around to see Aizawa and Baku standing in the doorway. His beak flushed. He really had become too laxed with Sora around. Fumi wrote it, Sora said, still twirling in the room. Really? Aizawa said with a smirk. You never told us you liked to write songs too, Tokoyami? You have to be really special to get a song from Fumi, Sora said, stopping in place. He wrote this song for me. I've never heard it with the guitar before. Oh? And how did he do with the guitar? Aizawa asked. It sounds really good. Sora hopped on Tokoyami's lap. Tokoyami smiled and nuzzled his beak in her hair. I'm glad you approved. Hey Sora, I have to talk to Tokoyami. I was hoping I could ask you to play with Bakugo while I did. Is that all right? Sora looked over at Bakugo. Can we play Ring Around the Roses? Bakugo shrugged. Whatever. Yay! Sora jumped up and went to grab Bakugo's hand. She paused and looked at him. We don't have to play with anyone else, do we? Not unless you want to, Bakugo said. They're all idiots. Sora shook her head. I don't want to play with idiots. She took Bakugo's hand. Good. We'll be in the courtyard. The blonde guided the child out of the room. Aizawa closed the door before joining Tokoyami on the floor. The other teachers, Principal Nezu, and I held a meeting this afternoon. We were discussing what could be done for you and Sora. You do not need to gloss over anything, Sensei, Tokoyami interrupted. I realize that I cannot leave Sora home alone. I am to return home. I will need to drop out of UA. That's exactly what we don't want, Aizawa stated. Tokoyami stared with wide eyes. How could his teacher expect him to leave his sister behind? I can't send her back there. I know, Aizawa said. You are a good hero, and the world needs you. It's unfortunate that the world has not provided for you before this moment. Your sister coming here is alarming. The fact that she snuck onto our campus to get to a safe place is of great concern. As a school with hero faculty, We cannot return her without knowing she is safe. So, she is staying here? For now. Principal Nezu is looking into all the legal matters. What we can do as a school depends on how you answer these next questions. I have a feeling these are going to get very personal, Tokoyami sighed. Aizawa nodded. They will. I'm just going to come out and say it. Was your grandmother arrested for actions she did onto you, or onto Sora? Until recently, I had been her only target, Tokoyami answered plainly. Aizawa's eyes grew. What do you mean? I mean that Sora is now dealing with this alone. That never happened when I was home. Aizawa sighed. He couldn't contain the feelings he had anymore. Not with this new information. No wonder the girl ran here. He reached across to Tokoyami and pulled him into hug. Tokoyami's body began to shake. The facade he had placed before himself while in front of Sora fell, and he allowed himself to cry. We're going to take care of you and Sora, Aizawa said upon releasing the boy. But I need you to tell me everything. All right, Tokoyami nodded. He exhaled, before retelling the tales of high childhood to his teacher. Bakugo stood outside, bored out of his mind as Sora skipped in circles around him. She held onto one of his hands as she moved about. She skipped as she sang. Ring around the rosy. A pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes. We all fall down. Each time she finished, Bakugo would let off a small explosion from the palm of his hand. This would ignite the girl. She would fall to ashes. Bakugo would wait an undetermined amount of time, and the child would reform cheering and laughing. She would then ask to do it again. This is what he had done for the past hour. Doing anything for an hour was too much. It was time for a break. Hey, we should stop and break. You can't do that for too long. You will be exhausted. Bakugo picked up the girl and brought her to the shade of a tree. Now what, Bakugo? Sora asked. Now we rest. Okay. Bakugo was surprised at the child's acceptance. She closed her eyes, crossed her arms, and leaned her back against the tree. One leg was extended while the other was bent up. She was a tiny version of Tokoyami whenever the class had a break. Bakugo closed his eyes and leaned back, a small smirk forming on his lips. Did I get Fumi in trouble by coming here? Bakugo cracked an eye open to look at Sora. Her head was now hunched over her leg as she tugged at grass on the ground. No. He's been gone a long time. Small drops of water pooled around her eyes. TSC, it's nothing to cry about. Adults always talk forever. Who knows what the hell Aizawa is saying? Bakugo reached down and picked a few blades of grass from the ground. He tossed the blades in front of him. Sora sniffled and whipped her eyes. Okay. After a few minutes of silence, Bakugo stood up. He extended his hand to Sora. You want to keep playing that Rose's game or whatever? The girl's face lit up, and she smiled as she grabbed the boys and began twirling and singing around him. Tokoyami walked outside to the courtyard. He looked around until he saw Bakugo, sitting under a tree, looking up at Sora who was climbing up its branches. Dark shadow pulled out of Tokoyami's back and floated beside its host. Sora isn't normally this comfortable with strangers, Dark Shadow noted. No, Tokoyami agreed. There must be something about Bakugo that she feels she can trust. I bet it is a similar feeling to what you have as well, Dark Shadow said with a smirk. Tokoyami tilted his head. What do you mean by that? Dark Shadow chuckled. I love knowing things about you that you haven't realized. Tokoyami growled. Dark Shadow. What? You trust him, right? Otherwise you wouldn't have let Sora out of your sights. Can you not admit that perhaps you trust another human? I suppose he does have coarse bluntness about him that allows no illusion of facade to overtake his interests. He is who he is. Fumikage, you can just say yes. It's just me. Tokoyami sighed. I'm not sure what to say. He has been so kind and understanding. He doesn't look at me with pity. And that means you trust him? Dark Shadow egged on. Yes. There you go. Now let's go join them. Dark Shadow dove into Tokoyami's body. Tokoyami walked over to the tree. Bakugo nodded at Tokoyami as he approached the trunk. The blonde pointed up, and the bird-headed teen followed. There, Sora was up high in the tree. The small girl looked down and waved to Tokoyami. Fumi, look how high I am. Tokoyami gulped. Sora was halfway up the tree, and at least 4 meters off the ground. Please be careful, Sora. I'm fine, Fumi. At that moment, she wobbled a little, but caught herself on the branch beside her. Dark Shadow poked out of Tokoyami's chest. I'll stick with her. The shadow shot up the tree. It grabbed Sora's hand and the small girl giggled and pet the beast. TSC, you worry too much. Bakugo pulled at the grass on the ground beside the tree. Perhaps. Tokoyami closed his eyes and nodded. He sat down next to Bakugo. He placed his hands on the ground to push himself back to lean against the tree. As Tokoyami's hands landed on the ground, his right hand felt something different than grass. It was warm and soft. Tokoyami peered through the corner of his eye to see his hand was resting on top of Bakugo's. Tokoyami's eyes widened. His irises shrunk, and his heart began to race. Why did this touch feel so strange? He was frozen. His hand stayed put, not knowing what to do. Bakugo didn't move at all. In fact, the blonde didn't even twitch. Maybe he didn't notice, Tokoyami thought. Composing himself, Tokoyami quickly lifted his hand and scooted his back against the tree. Sorry, he said while folding his arms. TSC, whatever. It was the only response Bakugo received. Tokoyami turned his head towards Bakugo. The blonde was looking away from the bird team. Bakugo's ears and the back of his neck were bright red. Fumi, Bakugo, look, Sora called. The two tweens looked up and saw Sora was standing at the top of the tree. Dark Shadow had a claw wrapped around her waist as she waved down to the boys below. Tokoyami peered over at Bakugo, who was smirking at the sight. Tokoyami smiled. Good job, Sora. He called Dark Shadow and her down, and within a few seconds, Sora was in her brother's lap. I hope you were well behaved for Bakugo. Sora nodded. Fumi, I like Bakugo. We did ring around the roses. I climbed a tree. He's fun. Tokoyami, I'm glad. Sora's smile dropped as Tokoyami set her down between himself and Bakugo. Fumi, did I get you in trouble? Of course not. Tokoyami stated. Told you, Bakugo commented. But why were you gone so long? Aizawa-sensei needed some information in order to help. Sora's eyes grew. You told, didn't you? Tokoyami nodded. I did. Silent tears began to pour out of the phoenix's yellow eyes. Now Dad's going to be really mad. And Grandma will be upset too. They said to never tell, or something bad would happen. She began to hyperventilate. I can't handle when they are both upset. Holy shit, calm down. Bakugo placed a hand on Sora's shoulder. Don't hurt me, Sora winced. She tucked into a ball. Bakugo removed his hand. He met Tokoyami's gaze. Your family is seriously fucked up. Indeed. Tokoyami said as he scooped up Sora and held her tightly. We are safe here. Remember, Aizawa has been to our home. He has seen Mom and Dad. But you told, a muffled voice said. Tokoyami stroked Sora's feathers. Aizawa already knew. He just wanted the details. We also needed to figure out where you would go tomorrow. There is no safe place for you to sit when we have combat training. Sora's head poked up. Tomorrow? I can't let you go home alone. I'm your brother. It is my duty to protect you. Keeping you here with me is the safest thing that can be done. But, Sora sat up. What if Grandma or Dad come? Aizawa is working on that, Tokoyami explained. Will they take me? She asked. Like hell they will. Bakugo pounded his fist in the ground. Both Tokoyami and Sora looked at him with the same surprised expression. I don't know all the details, but sending Sora home wouldn't be heroic at all. Tokoyami smiled sweetly. See? Even Bakugo agrees. Then what am I doing tomorrow? Sora asked, wiping her tears. Aizawa has a professional student who watches another girl your age, Tokoyami explained. Hello, as if on cue, Mirio comes racing towards the tree. On his back, he carried the small, white-haired Eri. She was peering over the older boy's shoulder. Mirio skid to a stop at the edge of the tree. He stood proud, bearing a large, wide smile. Tokoyami, hello. We've come to meet Sora. Sora's yellow eyes widened as Mirio's smile grew. Her small hand gripped Tokoyami's hand. Tokoyami nodded. Thank you for coming, Mirio. I appreciate your willingness to watch Sora tomorrow. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, right, Eri? Mirio dropped the small child to the ground. Eri peered around his leg and stared at the Phoenix girl. Sora leaned forward before standing up from Tokoyami's lap. She waved. Hello. Eri smiled and took a few steps out from Mirio's legs. Hello. Sora walked over to Eri. She tilted her head and stared at the girl's head. You have one horn? Eri nodded. Yeah. Is it magical? Sora asked. Eri looked confused. She rubbed her horn with her hand. I guess. It's where my power comes from. Sora smiled and pointed to her head. I'm a phoenix. I also am a mythical creature, unicorn friend. Eri smiled. I'm a unicorn? Sora turned her head, puzzled. Yeah, you have a horn and long white hair. That's like every unicorn. Eri smiled. Thank you. Mirio patted Eri on the head. See? You made friends after all, and you were worried. He bent down to Sora with a big grin. I can be your friend too. Sora took a step back. Fumi, what's wrong with him? There is nothing wrong with Mirio, Tokoyami stated. But all he does is smile, Sora argued. It's better to smile than frown, Mirio said. If you can make someone laugh, then it's like you save a small part of them. Sora frowned. There isn't always a reason to laugh. There should be, Mirio responded. Why make yourself live with so much regret? You don't have a choice on the regret you live with, Sora stated. Mirio leaned back and stared at Tokoyami. Tokoyami shrugged. Well, Sora, I'm glad I got to meet you today. I'm excited to spend tomorrow with you. Sora said nothing back. She just stepped back towards Tokoyami, watching the upperclassman beam down at her. You are watching me? You bet. Mirio gave a thumbs up. Sora turned to Tokoyami. He's safe, right? Tokoyami nodded. I would not have agreed to this if he were not. Okay, sighed Sora. She grabbed onto her brother's hand and looked at Bakugo. Is it dinner time yet? Bakugo looked at the phone in his pocket. It's past 5. We can get dinner if you are hungry, Tokoyami said. Sora nodded. I'm hungry. Tokoyami looked at his phone. We need get the laundry from the dryer first. Then we can go. Okay? Sora grabbed Tokoyami's hand and began to pull him towards the dorm. Sora, it is rude to leave without saying goodbye, Tokoyami scolded. Sora stopped and turned towards the Mirio and Eri. Goodbye. Bakugo stood up and grabbed Sora's open hand. Bye, let's go. The three walked back into the dorm. Tokoyami finishing the laundry, while Bakugo assisted and kept Sora entertained. Sora, for being so small, certainly had a large appetite. While removing the towel left on the mattress and making the bed, Tokoyami was constantly asked by Sora when they would go eat. In a little bit, Tokoyami informed her. But I'm hungry, Sora whined. And after you eat you get sleepy. I'd like to have the bed made for when you fall asleep. The small girl tried to help her brother by tugging at the sheets on the bed. Bakugo couldn't stand the bickering anymore. Just go get food. I will finish the goddamn bed. Bakugo tore the sheets from Tokoyami's hands. I'm tired of hearing her whine, he mumbled only loud enough for Tokoyami to hear. Tokoyami was put aback by the abrasive nature. Okay then, Sora, let's go. I want Bakugo to come. Both Tokoyami and Bakugo rolled their heads back. Tokoyami knew what was happening. Yes, Sora was acting bratty, but this normally didn't happen unless she was overstimulated. The cafeteria would be a horrible place. A meltdown would be sure to come. Sora, stay here with Bakugo, Tokoyami commanded. I'll bring food back here. Don't leave this room. Before Bakugo or Sora could argue, Tokoyami walked out of the room, slamming the door. TSC, whatever. Bakugo returned to straightening out his sheets. Bakugo had insisted on helping Sora pull out her clothes. As soon as he saw the giant ball, they were bound together in her backpack. What he didn't expect was how few clothes this mess was. Let alone, he was pulling out random applesauce and fruit snack papers from the mess. Where are the rest of your clothes? He asked. Sora tilted her head. What do you mean? I grabbed what I needed. 2 shirts, 4 pairs of pants, 8 pairs of underwear, and no socks. Bakugo held up each item as he sorted it. Do I really need socks? Sora questioned. Bakugo shook his head. No, you need outfits. Look. This shirt can go with these pants, and the same with this shirt and these jeans. Now what will you wear with the other pants? Probably the shirt I'm wearing. Bakugo's eye twitched when she said that. Her yellow shirt was stained with grass and ashes. You can't wear that again. It has stains. But Mom says I can wear clothes for 2, sometimes 3 days. At least that is how long it takes for the teachers to complain when I wear my uniform. Bakugo didn't know how to respond to that. This entire situation was fucked up. He had been used to kids running from him. Usually when someone is yelling, a child would be frightened. Not this girl. You are just a pussy-ass wannabe hero with no quirk of your own, Bakugo said to the dumb blonde who was trying to provoke him even further. Those are big words for a failure. Before Monoma could continue, Kendo reached in with her large hands and pulled him away. Sorry. TSC. Tell him that fighting on campus is stupid. And not to try to challenge me again. Bakugo shoved both his hands in his pockets and walked away. He grumbled to himself. He could easily kick Monoma's ass. But after challenging Deku to a fight on campus, who knew what a second fight for him would lead to? Suddenly, he felt something tug at the knee of his pants. Bakugo looked down to see a red and gold bird-headed girl with a large backpack pulling at his legs. Can you help me? I'm looking for my brother. Bakugo froze. A child had come to him. He stared directly at the girl. She was wearing a red shirt with jean pants. She had on purple socks, which contained her left pant leg. Can you help me? The girl tugged at Bakugo's pants again. Bakugo stared. The purple socks had little hearts on them. Hearts that should be covered by the girl's pant leg. Wasn't that uncomfortable? He blinked and looked back to her face. She was starting to cry. God, did he hate it when people cried. What was he supposed to do? Bakugo's eyes shot back to the one purple sock. Hold still, the blonde snapped. He knelt and untucked the girl's pant leg from her sock. The school bell rang, and the girl jumped. Oh, no, I made you late. Fumi said you get in trouble if you're late. Bakugo stood up when he finished fixing the girl's sock. Fumi, as in Fumikage Tokoyami? The girl nodded and Bakugo sighed. Come on. He shoved on hand into his pants pocket and began walking. The girl raced after him. Do you know my brother? Bakugo rolled his eyes. Of course. Now, hurry up. I can't be even more late. The young girl chirped with excitement. She reached up and grabbed a hold of Bakugo's hand. Bakugo glared at the touch, but rolled his eyes and ignored. It was better than her wandering off and running into someone stupid. In the cafeteria, Tokoyami managed to grab 3 boxes to go. If Bakugo was willing to watch Sora, the least he could do was bring Bakugo some dinner. Upon exiting, a hand landed on his shoulder. Tokoyami, Shoji's tentacle mouth spoke. Tokoyami turned to see Shoji and Kota standing behind home. Oh, hello. Tokoyami couldn't help but avert his eyes. Where is your sister? Shoji asked. She's back in my dorm room, Tokoyami explained. Shoji and Kota looked at each other. Finally, Kota began to sign. We are sorry we haven't been more supportive. What do you mean? Tokoyami asked. We should have been trying to help you with your sister. Instead, we let our own insecurities keep us from being good friends. Neither one of us are good with kids, so we used that as an excuse to avoid you. So we didn't get placed in an awkward position, said Shoji. But then, Kota signed. We saw Bakugo watching Sora. We felt horrible. We should have been helping you. The fact you had to ask Bakugo to help you, because we were not there, really hit hard. You are one of the best friends I have ever had, said Shoji. Kota nodded in agreement. We should have tried to get to know you more and helped you. Both bowed their heads. We are sorry. Tokoyami couldn't help but smile. You both don't need to apologize. I keep to myself. I'm getting dinner for Sora. I also think the cafeteria is too stimulating. Perhaps we can meet up after eating so you can meet her in a quieter setting. Both Shoji and Kota smiled. That sounds great. Would she like rabbits? Kota signed. If being around too many people is a lot, she could come see my rabbit. I think she would like that, Tokoyami said. I will text you both after our meal. The 2 teens waved as Tokoyami walked out of the cafeteria. When Tokoyami arrived back to his room, he found his bed perfectly made, Sora's clothes neatly folded, and everything on his desk and dresser shelves centered. Bakugo exhaled with relief when he saw that Tokoyami had returned. See ya, Bakugo said, walking out the room. Tokoyami was surprised. Wait, don't you want to eat? I have plans. I apologize. If I had known, then I would have taken Sora with me. I didn't have them when you left. With that, Bakugo walked out of the room, leaving Tokoyami and Sora to eat alone. Bakugo hadn't been lying when he said he hadn't had plans. But some things cannot be ignored. He stormed towards the staff housing and pounded. Open up, All Might. The door opened, and the wispy figure of All Might stood in the doorway. Young Bakugo, to what do I owe the pleasure? Can it? I need to go shopping off campus, and it is too late to go alone. All Might smiled. Here, one of his pupils asking for his assistance. Let me get my jacket. One benefit to having to take a teacher to go off campus after hours is that they could use the car. Bakugo leaned against the window, while All Might sat hunched over with his hands in his lap. Bakugo had given the driver the name of a store. All Might didn't think too much of it. That was until they arrived. The store was rather bright on the outside. A pink and purple animated cat danced on the sign reading, Kawaii Kitty. All Might stared at the sign perplexed. Are you sure? Shut up. Bakugo stormed into the store. All Might sighed and followed. He watched as the teenager scanned through the racks of clothing. It took the pro hero a moment, but he finally realized what Bakugo was doing when the teen grabbed several pairs of child socks. Are these all for Tokoyami's sister? Bakugo made a hissing noise, but didn't respond. All Might knew that was better seen as the boy agreeing. All Might felt proud. It was nice to witness something so selfless. It was a shame the lad didn't show this side more. All Might paused when he saw Bakugo opening his hand. He was counting, probably checking the price. A hero's work is never done, All Might mumbled before tapping Bakugo. The teen glared back at All Might, but his eyes lessened their intensity when he saw the hero's credit card. Let's just get the girl what she needs and not worry about the price, All Might insisted. TSC, fine. Bakugo continued to pull things off the rack, while All Might followed closely behind. Sora was very cautious as she walked out of the elevator with her brother. Tokoyami had said that they were going to meet a few of his friends. She recognized the names Koda and Shoji. Fumikage had talked about them to her while at home. It was different meeting these people. You have a lot more friends now, Fumi, Sora commented. Tokoyami nodded. I have met many others with similar interests. You will have lots of friends too. You and Eri seem to like each other. I like that she is also mythical. Tokoyami laughed. I know you've seen Shoji and Koda, but I don't want you to worry. Besides, Koda has a pet bunny. Sora's eye gleamed. Do you think I can pet it? Tokoyami nodded. I'm sure you can. I bet he will even let you hold it. Sora began to skip. Okay. They reached Koda's room and knocked on the door. Koda opened the door and waved the two in. Shoji was sitting on the edge of his friend's green bed. A white rabbit hopped along the hardwood floor. Bunny, Sora whispered with excitement. Hey Koda, Tokoyami greeted. Hello Shoji. This is my sister, Sora. Hello, Sora waved. Can I pet the bunny? Koda smiled and nodded. He walked over to the rabbit and knelt on the ground. Sora followed and watched as Koda held the creature still and showed the young girl how to gently pet the rabbit. Sora laughed as its fur tickled her hand. Tokoyami sighed and joined Shoji on the bed. Shoji looked rather shocked. She just came in so naturally. Tokoyami shrugged. She likes animals. A pet rabbit is pretty cool. I assumed she would have been more afraid, Shoji stated. Sora turned from the rabbit to the masked teen. Why would I be so afraid? Shoji jumped a little, clearly startled by Sora's question. Oh, it's just, normally people find me rather scary. Koda has also received the same criticism. Sora looked to Koda, who nodded his head. That's dumb. What's scary about you two? Both Shoji and Koda stared at each other. Tokoyami jumped in. Just like how people look at us for having bird heads, Shoji and Koda get judged. That's stupid, Sora stated, as she stroked the rabbit's fur. It is, Tokoyami agreed. After a few minutes of petting, Koda agreed to let the small girl hold the rabbit. She was very excited as she sat still and Koda placed the animal in her lap. Sora gently wrapped her arms around the creature. She then looked around the room. Her eyes landed on a photo of Koda and his mother that sat on his desk. The two were hugging and smiling. Who's that in the picture? She asked, pointing with her beak. Koda glanced at the picture before rubbing the back of his neck with his hand. That's me with my mom. Sora stared at the picture while running her fingers through the rabbit's fur. Are moms supposed to be that happy? They usually are, Tokoyami answered. It was a bit of a relief to Koda and Shoji. They were both not sure what to say. The silence that filled the room made Shoji feel tense. He had to say something. I'm sure you will be a happy mom someday. Sora froze. Do I have to be a mom? No, you don't have to, Shoji quickly recalled his statement. I just meant that you could. Oh, Sora released the rabbit. She walked over to her brother and crawled into his lap and leaned her head against his chest. Tokoyami hummed and ran his fingers over her head. Are you all right, Sora? Yeah, I was just wondering if Mom could be that happy, she said. Tokoyami thought for a moment. It was very hard to hide anything while Sora was around. Their home life was full of secrecy and distrust, that he never wanted her to feel like she couldn't say what was on her mind. There was enough of that at home. I want to say yes, but I have no memories personally. You don't remember your mother being happy? Shoji asked, shocked. Tokoyami shook his head. No. But she loves you, right? Kota dared to ask. Fumi says Mom never knew what love was. That's why Dad went on business trips with his girlfriend before divorcing Mom. Divorcing, Tokoyami corrected. Mom just tries to fill her emptiness. I wish I could have two dads instead of a mom and a dad. But boys have to like girls. Sora sighed. Boys don't always like girls, Tokoyami half whispered. Boys can like boys and girls can like girls. The other three looked surprised. They all looked to Tokoyami. Kota and Shoji shared wide eyes, a silent realization forming. Do you like girls, Fumi? Sora asked. The tension in the room thickened. Shoji and Kota held their breath. This was not a topic any of them had discussed. They had never even shared whether or not they would be interested in dating while being a hero. I will be friends with girls, Tokoyami admitted. But I don't think I would want to marry a girl. I don't want to marry a girl either, Sora said. Does that mean you'd marry a boy? Probably, Tokoyami said. His body tensed a little as he said it. He looked to Shoji and Kota, unsure of how they would respond. I want to marry a boy too. I'm going to be a better than Mom. Tokoyami hugged his sister. You'll be much better. Sora looked up to Tokoyami's face. Are you going to be better than Mom? Before Tokoyami could respond, Shoji spoke. He will absolutely be the best parent anyone has seen. Don't you think so, Sora? Sora nodded. Yeah, Fumi will be a good dad. I think he would too, Shoji said. I think he'd also be an excellent boyfriend. Thank you, Shoji, Tokoyami said. His voice slightly shaky with surprise. You're welcome. Shoji fiddled with his hands before speaking again. I also don't think I could date a girl. Tokoyami's eyes widened. This was such a personal statement coming from Shoji. He had no idea Shoji felt this way towards people. What about Kota? Sora asked. The rock boy blushed. I kinda like a girl in our class, he admitted. Sora hummed. That statement clearly made her uncomfortable. She wasn't sure how to respond. Instead, she wrapped her arms around Tokoyami. I want to go back to your room. Tokoyami nodded. Okay. Thank you, Kota and Shoji, for hanging out. Yeah, it was nice, said Kota. I feel like this made us a lot closer, Shoji said with a smile. Tokoyami smiled as well. Agreed. Tokoyami carried Sora out of the elevator and into the hallway. He was surprised to see Bakugo waiting outside his room door. He was even more surprised to All Might standing behind him. Both were holding hangers with children's clothing dangling, and some large blanket. It's about time, Bakugo snapped. Tokoyami recoiled at the statement. I didn't know you would be returning. I had my phone on me. Whatever, let's get inside. I want to hang these up for Pipsqueak. Bakugo motioned towards Sora. Sora looked at the garments hanging in Bakugo's hands. Are those for me? Bakugo scoffed. They sure as hell won't fit me. Sora pushed herself out of Tokoyami's grip. She jumped over to Bakugo and began fiddling with the different clothes. Bakugo danced in place, snapping at the girl to stop. Tokoyami glanced over at All Might, who simply smiled. Why don't you let us in? All Might suggested. Tokoyami unlocked the door and the group entered. Bakugo tore upon Tokoyami's closet and began to hang up all the different outfits for Sora. He pulled Sora next to him and had her look at each outfit that was hung on the hanger. All of these match. This is an outfit. The shirt and pants go together. All Might gently set his pile of clothes beside Bakugo and walked beside Tokoyami with the large blanket. This is a rubber sheet, All Might said to Tokoyami. After talking with Bakugo, I figured this was something you could use. Tokoyami simply nodded before ripping apart the nicely made bed. All Might assisted him with the rubber sheet. Once the mattress was encased in a protective layer, they reapplied all the bedding. Thank you, Tokoyami said, bowing to All Might. It was no problem, said All Might. Think of this more as a protection for school property. Tokoyami turned his attention back towards Sora and Bakugo. Bakugo had his hands on his hips and was bending down to look the small child in the face. You wear an entire outfit at a time, not just changing one article. You got it, Pipsqueak? Sora nodded. She lunged towards Bakugo and wrapped her arms around his hips. Thank you, Bakugo. Bakugo blinked and stared at the child. He placed one hand on her head. Sure. Yes, thank you, Bakugo and All Might. Tokoyami bowed to each of them. It was no trouble, All Might said. TSC, like you would be allowed off campus. Bakugo tore Sora from his leg and handed her a pair of pajamas. He then walked out of the room. Later, Pipsqueak. I better leave as well, said All Might, gesturing towards the door. If either of you need anything, feel free to ask. My door is always open. The hero left, leaving Tokoyami and Sora alone in Tokoyami's room. The two changed and got ready for bed. Sora curled up against the brother under the blankets, and Dark Shadow turned out the lights. Fumi, what's going to happen tomorrow? Well, the first thing that will happen is that I will take you to Aizawa-sensei's home to stay with Mirio and Eri. I will go to class, and you will hang out there. Then once classes are over, I will come pick you up, and we will get dinner. Will it be like this every day? Sora asked. I'm honestly not sure, Tokoyami answered. We just need to be flexible with whatever happens. Sound good? Sounds good, Sora yawned. A few minutes of silence passed before Sora spoke again. I missed this. Missed what? Tokoyami asked, now with his eyes closed. Feeling safe with you. Sora smiled and quickly drifted off to sleep, as Tokoyami and Dark Shadow wrapped themselves around her more. The next morning was a bit of a challenge. Sora was more nervous about being left alone. She clung tight to Tokoyami, not even wanting to walk. It was difficult for Tokoyami to carry both his sister, his bag, and her backpack, but he managed to hold all three as he walked. Tokoyami could relate to the fear. Mirio wants to be a hero as well, he said. He will be nothing but kind. Sora didn't respond with words. Instead, she wrapped her arms tighter around Tokoyami's neck. Tokoyami could tell she was nervous. He nuzzled his beak against the top of her head as they left the dorm. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived at Aizawa's home. Tokoyami knocked on the door. The door swung open to the bright and shining face of Mirio. Good morning. Sora's eyes widened, and he gripped Tokoyami's neck tighter. Tokoyami coughed, but managed to choke out a greeting. Good morning, Mirio. You came just in time. Pancakes are done. Mirio shows a plate with a large fluffy cake. Berries and whipped cream decorated the top as a smiling face. Sora placed a hand on Tokoyami's face. Please, can I go with you? I promise I will be good. I will stay out of the way and be quiet. Tokoyami lifted Sora off from his neck and to the ground. It's not safe to have you in a combat art. Besides, Mirio is very kind. I promise you he is safe. Mirio's face fell into a flat expression. This small girl was less trusting than he assumed. He thought that yesterday would have prevented this. He needed to bring her in. He turned around and placed his hand next to his mouth. Eri, would you come show Sora where we eat breakfast? Little feet hit against the hardwood floor. Eri's smiling face peered beside Mirio's leg. She reached out and grabbed Sora's hand. Sora, we get a dessert for breakfast. Come on. Sora turned to look to Tokoyami with worried eyes as she was dragged into the house and towards the breakfast table. Thank you again, Tokoyami said as he took off Sora's backpack and handed it to Mirio. I placed her headphones and MP3 player in there, along with some extra clothes. I'm sure all will go well, Tokoyami, Mirio reassured. There is one thing, Tokoyami said, opening the smallest pocket to reveal several lighters. Mirio looked shocked that a child's backpack would contain so many. Since Sora is a phoenix, she can heal herself. If she gets hurt, don't bother with bandages. Just light her on fire. She'll heal herself and she loves it. If she is sad, give her a lighter, and she will play Ring Around the Roses. Just let her light herself on fire when in doubt. She could do that all day if needed. You can call me if something happens. Aizawa has permitted my phone to be on me. Either I will answer, or he will. Okay, Mirio said. I'm sure that won't be needed. You have a good day at class. You can also add the two of us to your count to 1,000,000, Tokoyami said. This is a debt I don't know how to return. Tokoyami bowed before turning away. Mirio smiled and closed the door. He turned to see Eri scooping bites of the thick, fluffy pancakes into her mouth, while Sora hesitantly cut at the sweet treat. She lifted the bite into her beak, and once she removed the fork, smiled. Mirio's grin widened. This was going to be an excellent day. Mirio realized he had spoken too soon. After breakfast, both girls sat awkwardly at the table. They didn't quite know what to do. They made small chatter. Things were yummy. They both liked berries. Finally, Eri figured you something to say. Would you like to see my room? Sora nodded, and the two girls walked off. Eri didn't have much in her room. There was a small bed, and a closet with clothes and a doll. Sora took a seat on the bed and stared at the space. There were some colored pictures hanging on the room. A picture of Eri and Mirio smiling together were on her nightstand, along with a picture of Aizawa holding Eri. Is Aizawa-sensei your dad? Sora asked. Eri shook her head. No, but he looks after me. He is a lot nicer than the last person that looked after me. So Mirio is not your brother? No, he's just nice. Eri grabbed a pretty dress out of her closet. We can wear pretty clothes. Sora looked at the dress with a slight glare. No thank you. Oh, Eri's voice dropped. She stared at the dress. Is it okay if I get dressed up? Sora nodded. Eri smiled. She dropped the fancier dress on the floor and began to pull her own dress up over her head. No, Sora screams. She ran out of the room just as Mirio began to sprint towards the room. Mirio grabbed Sora by the shoulders. What's wrong? I don't want to get dressed, Sora yelled and hit at Mirio's arms. I don't understand, Mirio said. Sora was in tears. She was hyperventilating and yelling. Her fists were starting to redden Mirio's skin as well. Mirio stared at her. Should I get the lighter? He thought. He looked past the red bird to see Eri now standing in the door, concerned. She had changed clothes. Aizawa has warned him that some shady things were happening in the Tokoyami household. With a large grin, Mirio patted Sora in the head. You don't need to do anything you don't want to. Hey, why don't you two ladies do some coloring while clean up breakfast? He gestured to the living room, and both girls nodded in agreement. Mirio didn't need the lighter, but he could see why Tokoyami had provided him so many. Sora was quiet. Luckily Eri was as well. They both eventually figured out a quiet game to play. Slowly the trust was rebuilt, and eventually the two girls were running around squealing with fun, even including Mirio in on the fun. For lunch Mirio made rice balls filled with pork. The girls ate while Mirio began pouring sugar, brown sugar, water, condensed milk, and more into a large pot on the stove. He let the mixture sit on the heat and pulled out a large bag of apples. He began placing sticks in the apples. Sora had watched Mirio as he proceeded with each step. Eri noticed as well. Mirio, what are you doing? I thought that after lunch, it would be a fun time for us all if we made some caramel apples, Mirio said while flashing a giant toothy grin at the girls. Eri's eyes lit up. We can make those. Mirio nodded. Yep. Eri grabbed Sora's arm and shook it. I had one of these at the cultural festival. They are so yummy. Sora looked at Eri's excited face and smiled. Apples are my favorite food, she said. Mine too, said Eri. And they are better with caramel. The girls quickly finished their meal and joined Mirio by the stove. Mirio placed 2 stools in front of the stove. On either side, there were a plate of apples with sticks for each girl. There was a tray with wax paper as well. Watch closely, Mirio said as he demonstrated how to carefully dip the apple in and place it on the paper tray. Both girls watched closely, and they each took turns dipping an apple into the pot of hot caramel. Sora was careful and meticulous with each apple. After dipping it in, she spun the apple to keep the coating even. Eri was a bit more rapid with her dipping. She wanted to stick the apple in as far as possible, hoping to reach the bottom. On her 4th apple, Eri stood on her tippy toes as she stuck the apple in. I want to make this one really sticky. Her stool began to wobble as she balanced on her toes. Eri, be careful. Mirio tried to move to grab the girl, but he was too late. She slipped, catching herself with one hand on the stove and the other hand in the hot caramel. She screamed. Mirio pulled her arm out of the caramel and grabbed the other off the stove. His hand bumped against the pot, burning himself as well. Mirio carried Eri to the sink and turned on the cold water. He held her hands under the tap as she cried in pain. He plugged the sink and filled it with water. Once Eri could stand with her hand in the water, he left her at the sink to get the first aid kit. Get the ointment cream, then we can go see Recovery Girl. Hopefully Aizawa won't be too mad, Mirio mumbled to himself as he unzipped the bag. He winced as the zipper rubbed against his raw burned skin. There wasn't time for him to think about himself. He needed to worry about Eri first. Mirio walked back into the room, but stopped and watched what he saw. Sora had one of Eri's hand in hers and was bringing it under her eye. Sora tilted her head and tears dripped onto Eri's reddened skin. All the blisters and red burns began to disappear as the tears splashed against her skin. She switched to the other hand, and the same thing happened to the other hand. Better? Sora asked. Eri nodded, wiping the tears from her eyes. Much better, thank you. Eri turned to see Mirio standing in awe. Look, Sora fixed it. My hand is all better. Mirio walked over to get a closer look at Eri's hands. They were indeed better, with no signs of trauma. That's incredible, Mirio said in awe. Sora took a hold of Mirio's hand that had been burned. You got hurt too. She brought the fingers close to her face, and the tears dripped onto his hand. A cooling tingle spread over his hand, and the burn disappeared. Mirio flexed his hand in awe. That's one incredible quirk you have there, Mirio said with a big smile. Should we finish the apples? Sora asked. How about you two eat one of the cooled apples, and I finish the rest of these? Mirio offered. The two girls nodded in agreement. An hour and a half later, Mirio had finished all the apples and safely cleaned up the girls. Both girls had begun to do something quiet. Sora was coloring and listening to music, while Eri was watching some cartoon on the television. Classes should be over in the next 30 minutes. Aizawa would be back soon, and so would Tokoyami. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. All three stopped what they were doing and stared at the door. Mirio stood up to get the door. I wonder if class got out early. When Mirio opened the door, he was not the only one surprised. Before him stood the number 2 hero, Hawks. His red wings were tucked behind him, one hand in his brown avian jacket, while the other held a toothpick to his teeth. Oh, you're not a racerhead. I am not. My name is Mirio Tagada. The senior bowed to the hero. It is such an honor to meet you, Hawks. Thanks. Look, I'm sorry. I thought this was a racerhead's home. I must have the wrong address. Hawks laughed and rubbed the back of his neck. I will just be on my. You have the correct house. Aizawa-sensei is still teaching. He should be here within the hour. Mirio informed him. Oh, then do you think he would mind if I came in and waited? Hawks asked. He asked me to stop by when I finished my patrol, and I ended up finishing a little early. The more the merrier, Mirio said as he stepped aside for Hawks to enter. We were all just sitting down, coloring and watching a show. Hawks raised an eyebrow. He walked into the living room to see 2 small girls sitting and staring at him. Well, hello, children. Yes, meet Eri and Sora, Mirio said, pointing at each girl. Eri timidly waved at the hero, while Sora stared with her beak slightly ajar. Hawks, she whispered. That's me, Hawks proclaimed. And who are you, my little bird? I'm Sora. It's nice to meet another red bird, Hawks said with a wink. You're Hawks as in Fumi's Hawks, right? Sora stood up and walked over to the hero. Hawks squatted beside the girl. Who is Fumi, and why am I theirs? Fumikage Tokoyami. He's my brother. Hawks was clearly surprised by this. He never told me he had a sister. Sora giggled. That's because you probably didn't ask the right questions. He is too focused on becoming a hero to think about other things. He certainly is a serious one. Why is he that way, little bird? Hawks flexed his red wings around the girl. Fumi is going to be a hero as fast as possible for me. When he is a hero, he can buy a house, and then I can live with him instead of mom and dad. That was a much more loaded answer that Hawks anticipated. He had never once considered asking his pupil about his home life, simply because Tokoyami had never brought it up. There was more to learn here. Hawks could feel the uncomfortable stares from the smiling teen behind him. This clearly seemed to be news to him as well. Hawks sniffed the air to change the subject. Is that caramel I smell? Sora nodded. We made caramel apples. It was really fun, added Eri, even though I got hurt. Hawks stood up and looked towards the one-horned girl. How did you get hurt? I fell on the stove, Eri said. It's okay. Sora healed me. Her tears are magic. Hawks glanced down at Sora to see her uncomfortably folding her arms. It appears she takes a compliment about as well as Tokoyami. Well, those sound delicious. Are there any caramel apples left over? Absolutely, Mirio said. Can we have another one, Mirio? Eri asked, her eyes pleading with cuteness. How could Mirio say no to that face? Sure, but you need to finish it quickly. Aizawa-sensei will be back in 20 minutes. That means Fumi will be back then too, right? Sora asked. Mirio nodded. He will be back then as well. The blonde walked into the kitchen and brought out 4 apples on sticks. Each person grabbed an apple and sat on the couch, watching whatever program Eri had picked. 20 minutes passed, and there was no Aizawa or Tokoyami. Another 20 minutes passed, and they were still not around. Now the group was getting a tad concerned. Finally, another 20 minutes passed, and Aizawa entered the house. Hello, Aizawa said, as Eri raced to greet him. He picked up the girl and placed her on his hip. Did you and Sora have a fun time? It was really fun, Eri said with exaggerated nodding. That's good. He looked up to see Sora sitting beside Hawks. Hawks, what a surprise to see you in my home. I didn't hear from Hound Hero that you had arrived. My bad, said Hawks laughing. I sort of just flew in. Where is Fumi? Sora asked. Yeah, where is that little mentee of mine? Hawks asked, leaning back against the sofa. I need to give him a hard time for not telling me about his beautiful sister. About that, Aizawa said. Our combat practice became a little out of hand. He was severely injured. Tokoyami focused heavily on his breathing while he was in the nurse's office. He hurt too much to focus on his pain like he normally did. And if he focused too much on what happened, he was positive he would lose control of Dark Shadow. Minta was an idiot. When he and Shoji were paired up with the purple creep for the 3-on-3 exercise, they were up against Midoriya, Todoroki, and Yaoyorozu. Yaoyorozu had created flash grenades to blind the group. Tokoyami and Shoji knew if they got enough distance they would be fine. But that was stopped when Minta panicked and decided to grape rush anything in motion. Tokoyami and Shoji were stuck in place. They each took a direct hit from Todoroki's fire blast. It was so hot it melted Minta's balls to their skin. Then, Midoriya came from the side to kick Shoji. Shoji, defenseless, took the kick and flew directly into Tokoyami. The collision broke several of Tokoyami's bones, including his hip and 2 ribs. Now he sat in the nurse's office awaiting Recovery Girl's treatment. I'm normally not one for grudges, Shoji said in the bed next to Tokoyami. But I know this is all Minta's fault for panicking. Indeed, Tokoyami managed to say. He began to take slow, deep breaths. Recovery Girl was going to return soon. It had taken the assisting robots a good 20 minutes to unstick the teens from the gym floor. When they arrived at the nurse's office, Recovery Girl instructed that. Tokoyami, is your pain worsening? Should I call for Recovery Girl? Shoji asked. No, Tokoyami responded a little too quickly. He cleared his throat to slow himself down. You don't need to call her. Shoji could tell something was off. Tokoyami, are you sure? It's not the pain, Shoji, Tokoyami stated. But something is troubling you, said Shoji. Tokoyami was silent. He wasn't sure what to say to Shoji. How would anyone start such a conversation? I just don't like being in the nurse's office. That's understandable, agreed Shoji. Is there a particular reason why? Shoji, between my pain, discomfort, and anger for Minta for putting us in this situation, I would appreciate it if you would just let me sit here and focus on keeping Dark Shadow from acting up, Tokoyami states with a snappy tone. Forgive my frankness, but I believe the last time you held in your fear, things turned out poorly for the pair of us as well. The villain attack at the camp is different. Your voice sounds the same. You are taking deep breaths trying to stay calm. I know you, Tokoyami. I may not know everything about you, but I know you. A few tears leaked from Tokoyami's eyes. Shoji, I'm too scared to talk about it right now. We can talk about it later, I promise. Please, if you want to help, give me something else to think of besides being in the awful room in this condition. Shoji was shocked. Tokoyami rarely cried. There was something truly troubling his friend. Okay, let's talk about something else. As Shoji began to talk about the latest gossip that Hagakure and Ojiru were secretly dating, Recovery Girl entered the room. Okie dokie boys. I think I have sorted out how I want to go about treating the pair of you. The elderly woman's voice echoed in Tokoyami's head. Dark Shadow could feel that something wasn't right. Fumikage, when his host didn't respond, Dark Shadow poked out of Tokoyami's chest and nudged his face. Tokoyami remained with a vacant stare, trapped in a memory. Fumikage, you have to breathe softer, a raspy voice spoke inside Tokoyami's headset. I don't want her to find me, a small, 5-year-old. Tokoyami thought back to the voice. She wouldn't check Dad's closet, right, Dark Shadow? I'm not sure, Dark Shadow said. She'll find you if you don't control your breathing. Footsteps creaked against the floor outside the door. Tokoyami flinched. She's coming. A woman's voice began to hum. Fumikage, where could you be? Please leave me alone, Grandma, Tokoyami pleaded. My little Fumikage, she sang. My little Toki Toki. You make my heart go doki doki. The closet door opened, and light shined on Tokoyami's face. He hugged his knees and began to shake, tears dripping from his eyes. Please no. Fumikage, Dark Shadow headbutted the teen. Tokoyami blinked as his body recoiled from the contact. Dark Shadow stared at him with concerned eyes. An extended eye and mouth from Shoji, also came into view of Tokoyami. "Are you back with us?" Shoji asked. Tokoyami nodded. He then froze in place as Recovery Girl placed a hand on the back of his neck. He looked to his right to see Recovery Girl standing beside him. You feel a little warm. But that could be because of your choker could be retaining heat from your burns." Recovery Girl began to remove Tokoyami's choker. She untied the cloth. Tokoyami shut his eyes, trying to hold back the tears. He clenched his fists. The limb that was an eye transformed into a hand and landed on top of Tokoyami's hand. "Tokoyami, what's wrong?" Shoji asked. "Are you in that much pain, dear?" Recovery Girl asked. "Let me give you a small treatment. I don't want to heal you completely because I need to give you surgery. You have some bone fragments from your broken hip that need to be removed." Tokoyami braced himself as he saw the elderly woman's lips move towards his arm. He knew Recovery Girl would not do anything inappropriate. She was a kind person who only wanted to help. It still didn't keep the fear away. "No!" A loud, high-pitched scream shouted from across the room. Recovery Girl removed her lips, and Tokoyami dared to open his eyes to see Sora rushing at Recovery Girl, fists flailing in the air. "Sora? Get away from him!" Sora began to hit Recovery Girl. "Sora, stop that!" Aizawa rushed over and grabbed the girl. Sora continued to swing wildly. Recovery Girl, back away. Aizawa held on to her tightly until he saw Dark Shadow wrap around the girl. Dark Shadow lifted Sora to Tokoyami. "Sora, you have to calm down," Tokoyami stated. Though he was firm in tone, he did feel somewhat relieved. "She was kissing you. She was kissing you like Grandma," Sora said. It's how she heals people," Tokoyami stuttered. Sora shook her head. "She was scaring you, just like Grandma." "Of course, she scares me." Tokoyami raised his voice. "Look at her. Just seeing her makes me think of Grandma. Her cool fingers sliding all over me while her lips hit my neck. It's terrifying being here." Tears began to stream down Tokoyami's face. "This is the scariest place in the world. But my fear is irrational to Recovery Girl. She's a nice old lady who helps people and fixes them." Tokoyami's beak began to clack as he trembled at the memory. Sora saw her brother tremble. She knew saying anything else wouldn't help. Instead, she let her eyes water, and the tears drip onto her brother's skin. The room fell silent as Tokoyami's blisters and burns faded without a trace. "Thank you, Sora." Tokoyami gently patted her head. "Would you help Shoji as well?" Sora nodded and walked over to Shoji. She over the large teen's webbed arms and spilled her tears onto his skin. "That little red bird sure does have one heck of a quirk," Hawks spoke from the doorway. The number 2 hero slowly entered the room, keeping eye contact with Tokoyami the entire time. Tokoyami's eyes were now puffy and full of disappointment. "Hello, Hawks. I'm sorry you had to see me like this. I didn't know you would be here." He hung his head as his mentor approached the bed. It was a disgrace for Hawks to see him like this. Hawks ignored the teen's self-loathing statements. "Why didn't you say anything about her during your internship?" "It never came up in conversation," Tokoyami explained. "You could have brought it," said Hawks. "Why are you here?" Tokoyami wiped away his tears and filled his voice with annoyance. "To be honest, I'm not quite sure. Aizawa called me here to discuss some business. I arrived a little early, which provided me an opportunity to meet your lovely sister. We talked. We ate caramel apples. Then Aizawa came home and said you got hurt." "Man," Hawks placed his hands on his hips. "Can that sister of yours throw a fit? She would not stop screaming until we brought her here to see you." "Then fate has chosen to make a mockery of me today," Tokoyami mumbled. "On the contrary," argued Hawks. "I am not one who asks about people. It seems I need to learn more about my pupil before I continue mentoring them." "I don't see how knowing my personal life can help you," Tokoyami states. "Well, for one thing, it can show me why you are always holding yourself back. If you're afraid to visit Recovery Girl, then you will never try to push yourself to greater limits while you're at school." Hawks raised an eyebrow, waiting for Tokoyami's response. "That explains why you gave up so easily at the sports festival." Bakugo entered the room looking exhausted. He was changed to his street clothes as he walked into the room. Hawks pointed a thumb at Bakugo. "This kid gets it." "Bakugo, why are you here?" Tokoyami asked, barely looking up. "Why do you think?" "I'm here for the kid. Let's go, Pipsqueak." He motioned his head towards the door. Sora didn't budge from her spot. "I can't leave Fumi. He'll be fine." Bakugo pulled out 2 sets of keys. "I'll leave you my keys to get back in the dorm. I got yours from your locker. If she falls asleep, I don't want to deal with moving her. Take your keys, Bakugo. Shoji intruded on the conversation. I will stay with Tokoyami until he is fixed up to return to the dorms. Bakugo glared hesitantly before placing his keys back in his pocket. Okay, come on, Pipsqueak. But, Fumi? Sora stares at her brother. He was working hard to avoid eye contact with anyone. Sora, it is best if you go with Bakugo, Tokoyami mumbled. Sora opened her beak to argue, but hesitated. This provided enough of an opening for Bakugo to grab her and pick her up. Let's go, I need dinner. He carried the girl out of the room before she could say another word. Recovery Girl stood a good distance from the bed. Tokoyami, would you like me to give you a minute? No, I'd rather get out of here as soon as possible. Recovery Girl nodded. Very well. I will have a nurse assistant help prep you for surgery. She gave Aizawa and Hawks a concerned look before walking out of the room. Aizawa walked over to Tokoyami. Tokoyami, would you mind if I took a look at your phone? Sure, Tokoyami said hesitantly. It's over on table. Why do you want it? Aizawa walked over to the table and picked up the phone. He scrolled through the call history. I wanted to see if anyone had tried to reach out to you. You know, since Sora has technically been missing for over 24 hours. It doesn't appear so. He put the phone down and walked towards the door, grabbing Hawks by the arm on his way out. We'll leave you to get prepped for surgery. The two adults left the nurse's office. Hawks looked at Aizawa with raised eyebrows. Are you going to provide context to that? Once we are in my office, Aizawa said. There is a lot to fill you in on. I can agree to that. After all, I am now invested. The two nodded and walked towards the teacher's office. Once behind closed doors, Hawks expressed his concern. That's not a side I expected to see from Tokoyami. He doesn't like to show weakness, Aizawa states. He never has. So why bring me here, Eraserhead? The kid was clearly embarrassed by my presence. Don't tell me you expected some form of pep talk. Aizawa shook his head. No. I was more hoping you could extend your mentoring skills outside the realm of hero work. Hawks raised an eyebrow. And that would be helping walk Tokoyami through how to conduct a legal case for his emancipation. You want me to help him get his name off his family registration, Hawks restated. Aizawa nodded. It's what you did. Hawks thought for a few minutes on that statement. The winged hero paced the office. You know this won't help his sister at all. You don't think his emancipation would provide evidence that she needs to be removed as well? Aizawa asked. Not if you want to keep them together. Tokoyami getting emancipated will push his sister further away. Aizawa sighed. That's fair. I don't even know if Tokoyami would be willing to do it. You just need to provide the kid options, Hawks stated. Perhaps emancipation is the wrong route. I'm thinking we need to try something different. Hawks took a seat in the guest office chair. It's strange when you make so much sense. Aizawa sighed and moved to his chair. He leaned back and folded his arms. This day just kept getting longer and longer. All right, I'm listening. Bakugo hadn't thought about how hard it would have been to walk around with two trays, while a child would be clinging to his back over a backpack. Yet here he was. He opted for staying in the dining hall. Instead, the two went straight to Tokoyami's room. Bakugo didn't want to deal with questions from other people. Inside Tokoyami's room, the two sat on the floor and ate. It was quiet. Bakugo didn't mind. He didn't know what to say to Sora if she needed comfort. He was just grateful she didn't want to speak. Her eyes we glassed over, yet pensive. She needed to process what was happening, and as long as Bakugo didn't have to speak, he could handle this. Aizawa had managed to leave Sora's backpack in the hallway when they arrived at the nurse's office. Bakugo had scooped it up on his way out of the infirmary. Now Sora sat on her brother's bed, blasting loud music while attempting to color. Bakugo was sitting on the floor with his legs stretched out in front of him. Bakugo's phone chimed. He pulled it out to see a message from his mom. Mom, I called and got permission. You are having dinner here, Friday night. Don't try to fight me on this. Bakugo, okay? Bakugo felt his phone ring. It was his mother. He picked up the call. What do you want, old hag? He said rather softly. Katsuki, what did you do? His mother's voice screamed through the receiver. I didn't do anything. Bakugo was trying to speak softly, but his tone came across rather sluggish. Katsuki, are you sick? His mother asked. His normally sharp voice was curved with concern. I'm not sick. You are not acting like yourself. TSC. Look, I was just thinking, that's all. Thinking about what? What thought could make you not rage out like your normal self? Just, Bakugo glared over at Sora. She was still coloring. It's just that you're not as shitty as I thought. There was silence on the phone. Get your ass to this nurse this instant. And I swear to God, if you say I love you, I will drive my ass down there. Bakugo could hold it in anymore. Just learn to take a compliment, you fucking old hag. Bakugo. Sora was now looking at him with watering eyes. Bakugo huffed. Now look what you did. You upset the kid. I gotta go. Wait, what Kai? Bakugo hung up before his mother could answer. What do you want, Pipsqueak? Her yellow irises rippled through her growing tears. How do you know if someone is a good person or a bad person? Shit. This is not something Bakugo was prepared to handle. Why does she want to know this? He continued to look at the child. She was now trying to wipe any leaking water from her eyes. Bakugo sighed. I suppose it would be by a person's actions. Sora thought on that answer for a minute. Bakugo began to relax a bit until he heard Sora sniffle. His body stiffened like stone. He couldn't handle a crying child. I'm a bad person, she sniffled. Bakugo rolled his eyes. How? I hit that lady, Sora began to list. I yelled at Aizawa and Hawks. You were worried about your brother. Bad guys don't do things for other people. They especially don't worry about others. Bakugo wasn't going to let her continue listing anything negative. His words seemed to do the trick. Sora wipes her eyes again, then placed the headphones back on her head and laid down on the bed. Good, thought Bakugo. Hopefully, there will be no more of that. Tokoyami opened his eyes to a dimly lit room. He could tell just by the ceiling he was in the nurse's office still. His body felt significantly better. Good, you're awake. Tokoyami turned to see Shoji smiling and sitting beside his bed. You feeling better? A tentacle mouth asked. I am, Tokoyami stated. Good. Let's get going then. The two teens walked silently out of the nurse's office and towards the vacant courtyard. Tokoyami stopped and stared at the Height Alliance entrance. His eyes were fixated towards the second floor. Shoji could figure out what his friend was thinking. Do you want to take a minute to sit here and enjoy the fresh air? Tokoyami nodded, and the two moved to a large tree where they could both lean against the trunk. They sat in silence for a long while. Shoji grew tentacle eyes to observe his friend. Tokoyami was so stoic. His calm demeanor was so impressive. I'm sorry you had to see me in such a demoralizing light, Tokoyami said. I'm not, said Shoji. The multi-armed teen jumped at his own statement. Tokoyami turned to look at his friend. Why? Knowing what you have been through, Shoji began, and knowing what you still live with, I am proud. Many people would use such a story to allow themselves to be weak and selfish. You refuse to let this hold you back. You are working to be something that you never had in your life. It is truly admirable. I'm proud to be friends with someone so selfless. Shoji turned his head to stare at Tokoyami. He was met with a pair of red eyes staring at him with a mix of shock and perplexity. His eyes filled with warm liquid. Shoji. Shoji took advantage of the moment. He extended an arm around Tokoyami and pulled him closer. Shoji wrapped all 6 arms around his friend. He had never really hugged Tokoyami, not like this. What was more surprising was when he felt his small friend's arm wrap around his own waist. Tokoyami was hugging him back. The two teens remained in their embrace for quite some time. They only broke when Tokoyami's stomach growled. Shoji laughed. I suppose we have missed dinner. Though he loosened his grip, he didn't remove the embrace. I apologize. I didn't intend to hold you for so long. You didn't hold me, I chose to stay. Tokoyami nodded. Yes, I suppose. His voice trailed off. Dark shadow crept out from Tokoyami's back. He squeezed his way between Shoji's arms and looked Shoji in the eyes. He is happy you stayed. Shoji smiled with his true mouth behind his mask. I'm happy I stayed as well. Shoji's stomach growled. Perhaps we should grab a quick dinner. I should really release Sora from Bakugo's care, Tokoyami said. He pointed a thumb to the door. Would you mind letting me in? Shoji nodded and used an extended arm to swipe his keys over the fob. The door unlatched, and Tokoyami grabbed the handle. As he walked in, the bird-headed teen turned to Shoji with a melancholic smile. Thank you again, Shoji. The door closed and Shoji watched as Tokoyami moved out of sight. Shoji stared for a short while, retracing the path Tokoyami took. You may worry about Sora, but I'm going to worry about Tokoyami. Shoji turned away and stared ahead for the dining hall. Bakugo was frozen with tired irritation. It was late, 9:30 to be exact. The small girl was nervously rocking back and forth. She was yawning, but refusing to lay down. Bakugo was also tired, but he refused to fall asleep before the child did. Pipsqueak, just go to sleep, Bakugo snapped. Sora yawned, but shook her head. Not until Fumi is back. Bakugo growled. He will be fine, just close your eyes. I'm afraid to sleep without him, Sora admitted. You've slept without him before now, right? Sora gave an uncomfortable nod and hugged her knees. I normally just stay up until I can't anymore. Bakugo flinched at that response. This is even past my bedtime. How do you stay up this late? I listen to music, she answered. That loud crap? No. Bakugo stood up and pointed to the bed. Head down, now. Sora reluctantly placed her head down on the pillow. Bakugo stared before sitting down on the carpet. Sora sniffled as he stared. Bakugo. What? I don't like being in the bed alone. Would you stay with me until Fumi comes? Her yellow eyes shook with tears. Bakugo glared at the girl. This was ridiculous. How could he be up this late with fear? She had been home alone for some time. Surely, she would have adapted to sleeping alone. Unless Bakugo heard the sounds of Sora yelling about Recovery Girl. He looked at Sora, who had a death grip around the pillow. He finally moved when he was the first tear bubble over. He kicked off his shoes and flopped down on his back. Don't say a word about this. Sora beamed and rolled to have her hands tightly embracing Bakugo's chest. She set her head down on the blonde's chest. Thank you, Bakugo. Bakugo pulled out his phone and lifted the screen above his head. Yeah, sure. Just go to sleep. It's almost 10. I have my extra class tomorrow. Extra class? Sora asked. Yes, now go to sleep. Tokoyami's feet thumped like lead as he made his way from the elevator to his room. Sora was bound to be upset. She was not equipped to try and take care of him. She wanted to protect you, Dark Shadow said over the teen's shoulder. Yes, but that's not her job, Tokoyami muttered. It wasn't yours either, but you still did it for years, Dark Shadow argued. Tokoyami sighed. I suppose you are right. He reached the door. Hopefully Bakugo will be understanding of our late time. Upon opening the door, Tokoyami was surprised to see both Sora and Bakugo asleep on his bed. Sora was curled on Bakugo, while the blonde had his left arm draped across the girl like a seatbelt. Dark Shadow snickered in the teen's head at this. You should take a picture. When else is Bakugo this calm? Tokoyami shook his head. You honestly want to wake up a sleeping Bakugo? I didn't think about that. Dark Shadow sank back into his host's body. Tokoyami sighed. We need to wake him up. The avian teen walked over to the two sleeping on his bed. Tokoyami reached out and lightly grabbed the arm that was on top of Sora. Immediately Bakugo's right hand shot P and wrapped around Tokoyami's neck. Red eyes met red eyes and Bakugo released his chokehold. He removed his hand from Sora, and Tokoyami lifted her up and placed her on the bed. Bakugo sat up. You shouldn't wake people like that. Apologies, Tokoyami said. Bakugo stood up. It took her forever to fall asleep. What time is it? It's almost 11, Tokoyami said, checking his phone. Shit. I need to go to bed. Bakugo's eyes traced up and down Tokoyami's head. His upper lip twitched. Tokoyami nodded. I appreciate you help. He bowed. A small grunt came from Bakugo, and he stepped forward. Tokoyami stood up and was shocked when a pair of hands were gently resting at his neck. Bakugo's face was mere centimeters from him, his fingers playing with Tokoyami's choker. Tokoyami froze. This sort of touch from calloused hands on his neck. It was different. Your choker got all fucked up when I grabbed you. Hold still. Bakugo's eyes never left Tokoyami's neck. He unwrapped the cloth, exposing Tokoyami's neck. Tokoyami closed his eyes. The weird, rough fingers on his neck as the cloth came off. Tokoyami held his breath. It was a mix of familiar and unwelcome sensation, with an unfamiliar feeling and familiar set of hands. This was too much, but could he push Bakugo away? The panic began to subside as the warm cloth was replaced around his neck. Bakugo's thumb smoothing out the choker as he tightened the wrap. The tight wrap was secure. Bakugo released Tokoyami from the hold. There, good night. Bakugo walked out of the room, lightly pulling the door behind him. The door did not close completely. Tokoyami dropped to his knees, hands on his neck. Dark Shadow emerged from Tokoyami's chest. Fumigage, are you all right? The shadow asked in thought. Tokoyami took a deep breath before responding. This choker has been off too much today. I'm sure Bakugo didn't realize how intimate that would be. It felt like her, but it was safer. Tokoyami lightly patted the cloth with his fingertips. It's up higher a well, and tighter. Tokoyami. Tokoyami snapped his head to see Shoji now standing in the door. His friend's face was filling with concern. He held several small boxes in his hands, causing him to speak with his true mouth. Quickly, Tokoyami stood, placing fidgeting hands at his side. Shoji, what are you doing here? I thought you went to get something to eat. I went and grabbed some items from the vending machines. I figured you would be hungry as well. Shoji pushed the door open a bit wider. May I come in? Tokoyami nodded and Shoji walked in. He closed the door, a little too hard. The slam caused Sora to jump up and yell. What's happening? It's okay, Sora. Shoji just closed the door. Tokoyami placed an arm around his sister and pulled her into a hug. Fumi? Sora nuzzled into his shoulder. Are you better? I am, Tokoyami said. Shoji walked over and took a seat on the floor as the two siblings hugged. He placed out the bagged and boxed food containers he had brought in front of him. They are just some sandwiches from the hot food vending machine, he explained. Tokoyami smiled. Thank you, Shoji. Sora looked at the boxes. Can I have one? Sure, Shoji said. You pick. Sora moved from Tokoyami to the food. She stared at the boxes and then picked a spam sandwich. Thank you. Of course, Shoji nodded. He grabbed a sandwich and Tokoyami did the same. The three sat and ate on the floor in silence. Shoji ate with his tentacle mouth. Sora was at first curious to how Shoji was eating, but continued with eating her own sandwich after watching for a while. Sora finished her sandwich first before yawning again. Tokoyami stroked the girl's head. She was exhausted, and he knew she would be asleep soon. Sora, it's okay to go to sleep. I'm not leaving. Sora yawned and nodded in response. She climbed up onto the bed. Dark shadow crawled out of Tokoyami's back and pulled the blankets over Sora as she placed her head on the pillow. She lay down and rolled to face the wall. Dark shadow stroked her head. Within a few minutes, she was asleep. Dark shadow gave Tokoyami a thumbs up before diving back into his host. Should I leave? Shoji asked in a hushed tone. You can stay if you would like, Tokoyami whispered. I'm not exactly too tired after spending so much time. He gestured towards the nurse's office. Are you saying you want to talk? Shoji asked. You said you could talk about your fear later. I suppose I found out partially what was bothering you starting when Recovery Girl removed your choker. I only assumed that you were feeling insecure about that when I arrived. Tokoyami rubbed at his neck with his right hand. It's a comfort thing. You don't have to feel worried about that. Shoji pointed to his mask. I wear mine to protect myself as well. Many are cruel when it comes to my appearance. A mask is easier to hide. I could not imagine why anyone would be cruel to you, Tokoyami said with a small smile. Would you like to see? Shoji asked. Your face, without your mask? Shoji nodded as Tokoyami asked. Tokoyami nodded. Only if you want to. One of Shoji's hands pulled down his mask. He had a large, square jaw with no lips. His nose, though in a prominent spot, consisted of 2 slits on the bone. If I didn't want to, I would not have offered. Shoji smiled, brightening his onyx eyes as only very final edge of mouth curled up. A quick flash of sharp, pointy teeth poked out from his mouth's edge. Tokoyami's eyes didn't react. They simply scanned his friend's face. He, too, smiled at his friend. I see only a kind face. Shoji laughed, before pulling the mask back up to his face. I've worn a mask for almost my entire life. Having a mutation-based quirk, I was born like this. Once my teeth began to come in, my mom began to dress me with a mask. It just became a part of my everyday appearance. The two sat in silence for a few moments. Tokoyami turned to look at Sora, who was in the same position she was before. He turned back to look at Shoji. His eyes lowered to the floor as he spoke. I wouldn't mind seeing your face more without your mask. Thank you, Shoji said with a smile. Tokoyami leaned back against the bed. He dropped his arms to his side. Shoji eyed Tokoyami's left hand. In a swift motion, he moved on of his right hands on top of Tokoyami's. Is this all right? Tokoyami stared at the hand. The feathers on his head fluffing up slightly. Yes. Shoji closed his fingers around Tokoyami's, and Tokoyami did the same. Shoji leaned back against the bed as well. He closed his eyes. You have to be very brave and stoic. I can see that you always take great care and attention to everything you do. That must be taxing on you. You watch your behavior, your actions, and everything you say seems to always come with a purpose. You are strong. Just know you can still be strong around me, even if you need to show a little more emotion. Tokoyami squeezed Shoji's large fingers. Thank you, Shoji. The larger teen yawned. I think I need to go to bed. He moved to stand, lightly tugging at the hand he was holding. Started to loosen his grip, but to his surprise, Tokoyami stood with him. A light blush grew on Shoji's face, peeking out from his mask. If you ever need anything, or just would like someone to talk to, I am always here for you. Thank you, Shoji. Tokoyami released his friend's hand. I really appreciate your kindness. And I appreciate you, Shoji said, blush deepening. The multi-armed teen turned and left the room. This time, closing the door silently. Tokoyami didn't sleep that night. Instead, he curled up to his sister, lightly stroking her feathers as she snored. Dark Shadow continued to pester him about sleep in his mind. That was until he received a text message at 3 in the morning. Tokoyami cautiously rolled over, trying his best to not disturb Sora. When he picked up the phone, his heart sank. It was a message from his father. Dad, your bitch of a sister is playing hide and seek and won't come out. That drunk can't find her, and I am out of town. Go to your mother's and find her. Tokoyami gulped. What was he even supposed to say to a text like this? He was so shocked and tacked that he didn't notice that Sora had sat up and was now peering over his shoulder. I'm not playing hide and seek, Sora stated. Tokoyami flinched when he heard her voice. That's because Mom is probably not able to really think still. Fumi, is the stuff Mom drinks really medicine? No, it's just drinking. Then why does she drink it? Because she doesn't know how to be happy, Tokoyami sighed. Oh, Sora lay back down and stared at the ceiling. Tokoyami places his phone down and pressed his head against the pillow. He turned to watch Sora, clicking her beak irregularly. The sound was annoying, but clearly a reaction to their family. You know, I can remember one time when Mom was happy, Tokoyami whispered. You can? Sora stopped her clicking and turned towards her brother. I thought you said she had never been happy. I couldn't back in Koda's room, but I remembered just now. The last time I saw Mom happy was when she was pregnant with you. She wasn't drinking. She would always be smiling and rubbing her belly. I could feel you moving inside Mom. Sometimes your hand would stick out against her skin, and you wouldn't stop until I placed my hand against it. Why did she stop being happy then? Did she not like me when I came out of her belly? Sora's voice squeaked with concern. Moments like these were the moments that Tokoyami was most grateful for Dark Shadow. Tokoyami didn't want to look at Sora. He was too afraid she would be hurt. Dark Shadow wasn't too concerned. The cork wrapped itself around the small girl, giving Tokoyami the space he needed to breathe. Mom just needs to always be full. Being pregnant is as full as you can get. She's a very empty person, Tokoyami nodded. The siblings fell silent. Time passed, and they both were lost deep in thought. Sora spoke first. Are you going to respond to Dad? No. But that will make him mad. He will be fine. Tokoyami rolled on his side and cuddled his sister. Let's sleep. It is late. Sora nodded, and the two closed their eyes. They were soon fast asleep. The next day had started off calmly. Tokoyami had even managed to let it slip his mind that his father had texted him about Sora. That is, until Aizawa came into the cafeteria breakfast hall. Tokoyami was most of the way through his breakfast. He sat next to Shoji, with the multi-armed teen Sora. Sora has noted Bakugo's absence, but remembered he had an extra class. This made Aizawa's appearance even more shocking, seeing as he usually traveled with Bakugo and Todoroki to their hero classes. Tokoyami, could I speak to you for a moment? Aizawa asked. Does he know Dad texted you? Dark Shadow asked from within. I'm not sure, Tokoyami admitted. He turned towards Shoji. Would it be all right if you watched Sora for a moment? Not a problem, Shoji said with a thumbs up. Tokoyami nodded his thanks as he pushed Sora next to Shoji. Stay with Shoji. Sora nodded and simply continued eating. Tokoyami took this time to leave the table. He and Aizawa sat outside the cafeteria. Aizawa pulled open a notebook and pen. As he flipped through the pages to find a clean page, a fighting feels of guilt came over Tokoyami. I apologize. Aizawa looked up, face completely neutral. Apologize for what? I should have contacted you right away when my father messaged me about Sora. It was 3 in the morning. I was tired. I didn't respond. Aizawa cocked one eyebrow at the teen. Was this morning? Tokoyami nodded and Aizawa sighed. You don't need to apologize. Can I see the message? Tokoyami took out his phone and pulled up the message. He gave it to Aizawa. The teacher stared at the vulgar message. On a clean page, he quickly jotted something down before giving Tokoyami his phone back. Thank you. That was good information to know. Tokoyami averted his eyes. Okay. Tokoyami, I called you out here because I wanted to know how you felt about some of the faculty. What do you mean? Tokoyami asked. I mean, Aizawa had to stop and think. What was he trying to say? He sighed. Who do you trust? Which teachers do you feel comfortable being alone with? After your moment in the nurse's office, it seems like the right thing. So, I repeat, who do you trust? Trust? Yeah, which teachers? Tokoyami fell silent for a few moments. I trust you. Aizawa couldn't help but smile as he wrote his own name. Good start. Who else? All Might. Okay. That's all. Aizawa stared at the teen with a blank expression. That's it, Tokoyami nodded. Aizawa now raises an eyebrow. What about Principal Nezu? His high intellect worries me that I can never really understand what he is thinking about. Okay, Aizawa nodded. What about ectoplasm? I don't very much have a connection aside from my victory with Asui, Tokoyami said. I'm neutral. No trust to have really established. Present Mike? Tokoyami shook his head. Snipe. Another head shakes. 13. No, Tokoyami said defensively. Midnight. Sensei, she is sultry female that teaches content I love. She, like Recovery Girl, terrifies me. They listed off the remaining teachers. Each had a shaken head from Tokoyami. Aizawa hummed. Well, are there any other adults you trust? The two stood for 2 minutes, while Tokoyami slowly contemplated. He was uneasily stoic. Not even swaying in those few minutes. Does it have to be an instructor here at UA? Tokoyami finally asked. No. If there is someone else, that's great to know, replied Aizawa. I see. Well, Hawks would be the final adult to add to your list. I don't have any more adults outside my family that I interact with. I apologize if my mistrust is going to make anything for you more difficult. Aizawa places a hand on Tokoyami's shoulder. If I didn't want to know, I wouldn't have asked. Go back to lunch. I may call you later. Thank you, Sensei. Tokoyami bowed before heading back to the lunchroom. Once alone, Aizawa sighed. Only 3. I hope Hawks is ready to see what his suggestion brought to him. A few hours passed before Aizawa walked to the large conference room. Inside sat his co-workers, Principal Nezu, and Hawks. He took his seat, noting only one empty chair. All right, Aizawa, said Nezu. We are all here, except for Present Mike. He is escorting Todoroki and Bakugo to the next class. Thank you. As you all know, I went and talked to Tokoyami to get a sense of who he is comfortable with when it comes to adults. Our hope was to provide some options for possible caretakers in a law case. Tokoyami, being 16, would be able to petition the family court and ask for he and his sister to be placed under new guardianship. It turns out it is quite a short list, and after reading a message from his father, I don't blame him. Did his father contact him? Nezu asked. Aizawa nodded. He flipped open his notes. The text read, Your bitch of a sister is playing hide and seek and won't come out. That drunk can't find her, and I am out of town. Go to your mother's and find her. That came from his dad? Hawk's eyes widened, and his eyebrows raised. Shit. Where is his father now? Cementos asked. From the information I have gathered, he is out of town, All Might stated. I've asked the police department to notify me if they get any calls about a missing girl. So far, none have come in. That little girl ran away 2 days ago, and she is barely noticed as missing. That's so tragic. Midnight placed a hand to her head. So, we know family is out, All Might said. Who did Tokoyami say he was fine with? He only gave me 3 people. They are me, All Might, and Hawks. The room fell silent. That's not many options to work with, Cementos commented. Indeed, Nezu agreed. The principal glanced at the 3 spoken adults. Would any of you be willing to take on Tokoyami and Sora? I think the question should be who would win when presenting this to the court, Ectoplasm interjected. That's a good point, Midnight said. No offense, All Might, But everyone knows you are now powerless. What would you do to help take care of these kids, Cementos? All Might nodded. I can agree with that. That just leaves Aizawa and Hawks, said Snipe. Aizawa and Hawks stared at each other, both deadpanned and eyeing each other. Hawks finally spoke. I like that little red bird. Tokoyami is full of potential too. I will do it. Aizawa was shocked. You will? Yeah, I'll do it. Who could argue if the number 2 hero wants to raise their son? Besides, if Endeavor can raise kids, then it can't be too difficult. Aizawa smiled. I assure you that it is not that simple, but I am glad you are willing to do this. I already have taken on the maximum number of my house. Hawks clasped his hands together. Great. When do we ask Tokoyami? I can go get him, Aizawa said. Whoa, how do you do that? Sora was extremely impressed with Shoji's coloring abilities. The 6-armed teen sat on the floor. He had 3 crayons in his hand, all working at once. The 7-year-old was blown away. It was late afternoon. They were in the common area. Tokoyami needed to use the bathroom and shower. He couldn't complete this task while Sora hung around. Shoji had simply suggested he hang out with Sora in the common area while Tokoyami took care of himself. Sora was at first very skeptical. She wanted to hang out with Bakugo, but he was at his class. Shoji wouldn't be bad. He wasn't as fun as Bakugo, but he could do some cool things. Shoji chuckled. It took a lot of practice, but now it's not very hard. Sora grabbed 2 crayons and placed them both on the coloring book. The long crimson feathers on her head puffed up with concentration. She placed both hands on the paper in front of her and begins to move them. Shoji watched, smiling behind his mask, as the small girl tried and failed to move both hands at the same time. Frustrated squeaks were heard, but she didn't stop. She continued to try for the next 15 minutes. Her frustration began to fester. Sora, why don't we do something else? Shoji suggested. Tears dripped onto her paper. I want to draw with both hands, Sora cried. I understand that you want to be able to draw with both hands. It is very hard. It took me years to be able to do it. You just need to practice more every day. It will take a while, but you must work hard. Shoji stuck out his hand out to her. We can play something else. I don't want to play something else. Sora slammed her fist on the ground. Whoa, sounds like a temper tantrum. Shoji turned to see that Midoriya, Kaminari, Ashido, Ajiro, Hagakure, Jiru, and Kirishima walk in through the front door. The group surrounded the couch and stared at Sora. She was now petrified, seeing the girls looking at her. She hopped to her feet and scooted away. Shoji made an eye to stare at Sora. He could see the apprehension on her face. He moved his body over, blocking most of her from view. Hello, everyone. Are you still afraid of us, Sora? Ashido asked. We just want to be friends. We promise we won't bite, Hagakure said. Sora stepped out to the side of Shoji. Respect my space, please. Don't worry, kiddo, Kirishima said with a thumbs up. We won't get any closer. Yeah, Kaken would get mad if he found out someone scarred you in some way, Midoriya said with a nervous laugh. Sora frowned. Fumi says my scars have to stay on the inside. She pointed to Midoriya's arms. You have lots of scars on the outside. Do you have scars on the inside? Oh, yeah, of course. Midoriya saw that the girl wasn't looking away from his arms. Do you want to see my scars up close? Sora stared at him for a moment. She turned toward Shoji. Is he safe? Shoji blinked. Was Midoriya safe? She was asking him. How should he even respond? Midoriya would never purposefully harm you. Sora turned back to Midoriya. No thank you. I won't hurt you, I promise. Midoriya went to take a step forward, but Kirishima grabbed his shoulder. Dude, she said no thank you. That means you need to back off. Sora took a step behind Shoji. She knew Kirishima was safe. Bakugo hung out with him. That didn't mean that any of the others were safe. The fact Kirishima had to grab one of them and pull him away only made her not apprehensive. I wish Fumi or Bakugo were here. They would yell to keep everyone away, she whispered. Shoji felt a weight in his chest. He wasn't doing enough to make Sora feel safe. What kind of hero was he if he couldn't fulfill the emotional needs of this young girl? He needed to show her she was safe. Shoji expanded all 6 of his arms. He pushed Sora onto his back and encased her in his arms. He left a small opening in the front for he to see and managed to grab her crayons and paper in his action as well. She was completely secluded. Sora has asked for personal space, Shoji stated. Please respect her wishes and go on your way. The group nodded. Of course, said Kirishima. Come on. Let's go upstairs, said Jiro. Kaminari, I still want to fit in a jam session. Kaminari laughed. Right on. See you later, Shoji and Sora. The group laughed as they walked away. Shoji sighed with relief. Are you all right in there, Sora? Yes. Would you like to stay where you are or come out? The group is gone. Can I stay? Of course. Just let me know if you need anything. Shoji couldn't help but smile as he felt the small child begin to color on his back. He maneuvered himself into a comfortable place to rest. He knew Sora was comfortable, and that's all that matters. When Tokoyami emerged from the bathroom, he saw Shoji laying on the couch with his arms webbed together. He could see a small arm sticking out of a gap towards his head, holding a picture. Shoji was nodding his head. What is going on? Tokoyami asked. Shoji released his arms and Sora hopped off his back. Fumi, I'm leaning to draw with both hands at once. She shoved a picture into his hands. Dark shadow peered from Tokoyami's chest. The shadow smiled, rubbed up against Sora, approving her drawing. Tokoyami couldn't help but smile. Shoji is very good at using more than one hand. Why were you on his back? There were lots of people, Sora said. Midoriya was being his normal awkward self. And him with some more extroverted friends. I saw Sora needed her own space, Shoji explained. You can go back to my room, Tokoyami suggested. Now that you are back, I want to go upstairs. I left my music up there, Sora said. Why don't you give Shoji your keys, Tokoyami? A deep voice said from the doorway. The three turned around to see Aizawa standing in the doorway. Aizawa-sensei, I need to borrow Tokoyami for a little while. Would it be all right if you watched Sora, Shoji? Shoji nodded. Of course. Excellent. Come with me, Tokoyami. Wait, is Fumi going to be back for dinner? Sora asked. Are you hungry now? Tokoyami asked. Sora nodded, and Tokoyami extended his keys to his friend. Why don't you and Shoji go eat now? I will come back when I can. Okay, Sora said disheartened. I will be back soon, don't you worry. Tokoyami followed his teacher out the dorm door. They walked to the main teacher conference building. Inside, all the teachers, minus President Mike, were sitting at a large table. To Tokoyami's surprise, Hawks was also there. He sat next to Principal Nezu, who motioned Tokoyami to take a seat. I apologize that this will be a lot of information to be thrown at you, Principal Nezu said. I have made a handout for you with bullet points on the most important information. Tokoyami looked to a paper that was in front of him, face down. He picked it up and flipped it over. His eyes widened at the title of the page. Family Court. Tokoyami, we have come up with an option to help you in your home life. After finding out who you feel comfortable with, Hawks has offered to be a legal guardian for both you and Sora. What? Tokoyami looked around the room. A slideshow popped up on a large screen behind Nezu. In order to do this, you will need to file a case to the family court. We have some members of the school legal team that will help you draft such document. The slides switched as the process of the family court, how to file a case, and the member of the family court, and their roles were explained. With each change of the slide, Tokoyami became more and more overwhelmed with this information. He was completely lost when Nezu began a brief history of the court system in Japan. This was all too much. Why is he telling you all of this? Dark Shadow growled. Why didn't they ask me if I wanted any legal actions? Why did they make all this? Do I have to do this? Am I supposed to do this right now? Tokoyami's legs began to quake under the table. The way the hearing should work is that you will all meet at the family court offices. It will feel more like a conference with your lawyers and members of the family court, and essentially have your parents transfer guardianship and move you to Hawk's family registry. Wait, would I lose the name Tokoyami? Tokoyami asked. Probably, Hawk said with a shrug. That's something for the conciliation officer to bring up and the lawyers to discuss. If all goes well, and an agreement between both parties is met, then the act will become legal in 14 days. So, after the court hearing, your parents will have 2 weeks to change their mind. If they don't, then you will be officially added to Hawk's family registry. It will be nice, Hawks jumped in. The only other thing that I could think of would be for you to emancipate yourself. That would only help you, and not Sora. I know that from personal experience. It will be nice to take the two of you under my wings. We will be one big happy bird family. What do you say, Fumikage? Tokoyami flinched at Hawk's use of his given name. I am not sure. This is a lot of information at once, Aizawa said. I understand you may want some time to think this over. Tokoyami's head was swimming with emotions. He was happy that Hawks would be willing to take him in, but at the same time so terribly ashamed to have this asked by his mentor. He was embarrassed. How could he have let all his personal life be so out in the open? The final emotion was anger. Why would this decision would be made around me? Like I'm some Fabergé egg that could easily be broken. How dare these mentors go about make suggestions without consulting me first? Tokoyami's grip on the handout tightened. Tokoyami, are you all right? All Might asked. Now they want to know if I am all right? Tokoyami yelled in his head. Relax, Fumikage. It will be fine, Hawks said, leaning back. Who would argue against their children being raised by the number 2 hero? You too could have a normal life. That ego. Tokoyami crumpled the paper. Where was the help years ago then? Dark shadow begged to creep from Tokoyami's back. Tokoyami stopped as he felt the shadow growing. He was losing control of his emotions. He had to leave this meeting. He could come back when he was more rational. Excuse me. Tokoyami walked out of the conference room with his head down. As soon as the door shut, he began to sprint. He had to get away from everyone that was in that room. This was too much information. Court? New guardian. Hawks taking him under his wing. There was way too many people becoming involved in his personal life. Where are we going? Dark Shadow asked his host. I wanted to come out in there. Away. I need to think. We both need space. Even in his mind, Tokoyami was panting. He knew he was on the verge of losing control. He needed to be away from others, and he needed to find a lit space. As the sun set, the danger of this situation began to grow. Tokoyami was now outside. He stood on the brick pathway under a street light. He sat down leaning against the light. Can't get emotional. Don't lose control. Dark shadow slowly began to crawl out and encase Tokoyami. I want out. The shadow hit the light post. The light shattered, coving the teen in the dusk shade. Dark shadow, calm down, Tokoyami said through gritted teeth. The shadow continued to stretch its way from its host. Suddenly, there was a light popping noise. The shadow screeched and dove back into its host's body. Tokoyami looked up to see Bakugo standing beside him. I'm a bad matchup for you, he muttered. Thank you, Bakugo, Tokoyami panted. Not that it is my business, but what's got you all emotional? I don't want to stand out here all night. I'm fucking tired. Tokoyami stood, head lowered. I apologize. If you're out here, who is watching Pipsqueak? Bakugo asked. Shoji is watching Sora. TSC, Bakugo clicked his tongue. She's probably bored as hell with him. Let's get to the dorm, and I will watch her. You don't need to watch her if I'm back, Tokoyami said. Like hell you are watching her. You back into the dark room of yours, and you will just be going on a rampage again. I will not be your nightlight. Tokoyami stared into Bakugo's fierce eyes. Why do you care about what happens? I'm not asking you to stand by me. I can find a source of light without you. It's not you I'm concerned about, Bakugo snapped. Sora's just a kid. She can't deal with your emotional ass, and neither can I. Let the octopus nurture your feelings or whatever. I don't need someone to deal with my feelings, Tokoyami yelled. Really? You've been fucking crying the entire time. I'd be standing here. Tokoyami lifted his hand to his face. Sure enough, all he felt was tears and damp feathers. Had he really been crying this entire time and not noticed? His anger melted as he looked at the tears now collecting in his hand. Bakugo scoffed and pulled Tokoyami by the arm. She doesn't need to see you like this. Silently, they entered the dorm area. They were lucky no one else was in the common area. Bakugo shoved Tokoyami onto the couch. Wait here. Bakugo marched away. Tokoyami placed his head in his hands. He could feel the tears falling now. Crying wasn't any effort at this moment. A small dark shadow peeked out of his chest. The beast wrapped itself around Tokoyami as he continued to cry. Bakugo was right. He was too much of a mess to see Sora. Tokoyami. Tokoyami looked up. Shoji was standing at the edge of the room. His eyes were full of concern. The larger teen warily stepped forward. Tokoyami, what's wrong? I apologize, Shoji, Tokoyami stated. I am ashamed you have to see me in such emotional blunder. Tokoyami tried to brush the tears from his eyes. It's okay. Shoji extended a hand to his friend. Everyone will be back soon. They all went out to eat. Why don't we go up to my room? Tokoyami nodded, and the pair left the common area. In Shoji's room, The only place to sit was his futon. The two sat down next to each other. Shoji grabbed a box of issues that he kept in his closet and handed the box to his friend. Thanks, Tokoyami mumbled. Of course. Now what happened? Tokoyami sighed. It was so much. They want me to take my parents to court. What? I guess I can apply to have my guardian changed or something. Either way, Hawks was there. He wants to adopt myself and Sora. It was all just so much. Tears dripped from Tokoyami's eyes. This isn't a thought you just spring on somebody. I didn't even know something like this was possible. Shoji placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. It's all right. You are allowed to feel frustrated. I don't know how to feel, Tokoyami yelled. So much has happened. I just wanted to be in control. Now I feel like nothing is in my control at all. You can't control people, Shoji said. A few hands rubbing on Tokoyami's back. But they can control me. Tokoyami turned toward Shoji. I feel so helpless. I hate it. Everyone thinks I'm pathetic. That I can't take care of myself or my sister. I didn't ask for this help. I know I need it, but I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask to be this weak. Shoji lifted a hand to cup Tokoyami's face. You are not weak. You are possibly the strongest person I have ever met. Red eyes stared deep into black onyx eyes. Shoji was staring so intensely at Tokoyami. Shoji, you should not belittle yourself for moments in which you need help. You are a hero in nature and in spirit, but there is no way you could or should do this on your own. You have been given so much responsibility that should not be your own. You have faced your own personal demons, and no one has been there for you. People want to be there for you. I want to be there for you. Suddenly, a mouth was formed beside Tokoyami's face. It pressed its lips against Tokoyami's beak. It was a soft, warm kiss. Tokoyami's eyes widened. His tears stopped. His body froze as the interaction took place. Shoji's eyes widened as he realized what he had just initiated. He jumped back and stood up from the bed. Panic breaths escaped his mouth and his skin whitened. Tokoyami, I'm so sorry. Tokoyami placed a hand to his beak where the kiss was. His eye hazed, and a light rose traced his beak. He removed his hand and stared at his fingers, lost in thought. Shoji began to pace. I can't believe I did that. I should have asked. I should have thought. I just acted. I didn't even know what I was doing. Tokoyami, I'm so sorry. Tokoyami turned his head toward Shoji. His eyes were soft, yet distant. So that's how a kiss is supposed to feel. Shoji froze in place. What? I never really understood why people liked kissing, Tokoyami said, still staring at his hand. That was nice. Shoji's shoulder dropped in relief. Tokoyami, though not looking up, was smiling. Yeah, kisses are supposed to be nice. I had no idea, Tokoyami said, looking up at Shoji. Thank you. He exhaled a deep sigh of relief. I think I'm ready to go talk to Sora. Bakugo needs to rest anyway. Right, Shoji nodded. Tokoyami stood from the bed and walked over to Shoji. He wrapped his arms around Shoji in a tight embrace. The multi-limbed teen reciprocated the action. After a few moments, Tokoyami released Shoji and exited the room. Bakugo was too tired for this shit. He also was too tired to think anything through. Sora was a smart kid. She knew when her brother was upset. Why else would it be Bakugo who came up to trade with Shoji? Bakugo didn't want to explain because he didn't really know. After much prodding, Bakugo became infuriated. Telling a 7-year-old that her brother was crying like a bitch wasn't what he meant to say, but it was what came out of his mouth. He immediately regretted it. Sora began to cry herself, climbed up Bakugo's lap. The blonde did the only reasonable thing he could think of: spark his hand and light Sora on fire. The small girl turned to ash, and ash she stayed. Bakugo stared at his lap. Any second, Pipsqueak would pop back up, right? His lap was filled its dust. Thoughts began to run through his head. What would happen if he spilt some of her? Is she supposed to be able to ashes this long? If dust gets mixed with her, will she come back changed or disfigured? So, there he sat, until Tokoyami opened the door to the room. It's about goddamn time. I apologize. Tokoyami looked at Bakugo's lap to see the mountain of ash. How long has she been like that? 20 minutes? I don't know, it feels like fucking forever, Bakugo growled. I didn't do anything, I had tea done before. Tokoyami shook his head. Sora, enough of this. You can just stay in ashes because you are upset. So, she is doing this on purpose, Bakugo yelled. She is throwing a tantrum, Tokoyami explained. Sora, something big has happened, and I need to talk to you about it. The ashes remained on Bakugo's lap. I just want to go to sleep, he yelled. Tokoyami sighed. Fine. I'm just going to tell you. And if you are not back to yourself after I explain, Bakugo's going to brush you off. You may be shorter when you come back if not all your ash is there. A light glow started from the ashes, but it stopped and remained its gray shell. The teachers were talking to me. They think that if I fill out a law case, that I can get mom and dad to not be our parents anymore. That means we'd move, have to possibly change our names, and it may be a really tough law case. Bakugo's eyebrows arched with surprise. No wonder Tokoyami had been a mess. That's a lot of pressure for one person to deal with. Tokoyami continued his explanation. Hawks, the hero I'm training under. He says he is willing to adopt us. Tokoyami sighed, taking a moment to collect himself. I honestly don't know how to feel about this entire situation. I don't like making a decision like this either. It is going to impact us both. I want to talk to you more. Shit, is that why you were crying? Bakugo asked. Tokoyami nodded. The ashes in Bakugo's lap began to glow. Sora emerged from the ashes. Fumi. Yes, Sora. You're serious? I am. She hopped off Bakugo's lap, made her way her brother. Her arms reached up and Tokoyami bent down to lift her into a tight embrace. If we lived with Hawks, would we get to see mom and dad again? I don't know, Tokoyami answered. Sora paused. Though the room was silent, it was not still. A moment passed before Sora spoke again. Will mom and dad hate us? I don't know. She squeezed Tokoyami harder. There was an even longer moment of silence. What happens if you try and it doesn't work? Sora's eyes glossed over. Her voice was small and frail. I'm not sure, said Tokoyami shakily. This is why I want us to talk about this. As Sora wrapped her arms around Tokoyami's neck, Bakugo finally stood from the bed. He didn't want to learn more than he had. He walked out of the room, closing the door most of the way and heading to his own room to sleep. Tokoyami sat down on the bed. He pulled Sora from his neck, setting her beside him. He wiped a few anxious tears from his sister's face. Sora, I don't want you to be upset, but I think you should have a fair day in this as well. I don't like that this option was just thrown at us. How else could we have presented this to you? A voice from the doorway spoke. Hawks gently pushed the room door open, walking into his pupil's room. I hope it is all right that I'm just coming in. You really should work on keeping your door closed all the way. I suppose knocking would take up too much time, Tokoyami said in a snide remark. Though you did choose to listen in. Aren't parents supposed to be all up in their kids' business? Hawks replied with a smirk. Are you here just to annoy? Tokoyami asked. Kid, I'm here to check on you. You kind of ran out of the conference room. It's understandable. That wasn't the best presentation. Hawks laughed. Who hands a teen a bullet point handout? Tokoyami didn't respond. He simply looked in the ground. He was too ashamed to look at Hawks. Sora noticed her brother's reaction to the man. She didn't look at Hawks either. Hawks felt the cold shoulder from both teens. Come on. I'm not that bad, right? Is Hawks bad? Sora asked Tokoyami. No, Hawks is not bad, Tokoyami said, looked up at his mentor. Then what is with the cold shoulder? Tokoyami sighed. Dark shadow peered from the teen's back. Previous court experiences were not so fun. Pervious? Hawks questioned. He thought for a moment. You mean, with your grandmother? The report of sexual abuse caused a large rift within my family, Tokoyami admitted. My mother was a wreck, and my father was more furious than I have ever seen him. Then when my grandmother returned, it was even worse. Hawks hummed. So, you fear this will happen again? My grandmother was arrested and still returned home. Tokoyami looked up at the pro-hero. Even if the I were to file all the case, how am I supposed to trust that the court would work in my favor? Hawk's cool composure left his face. He rubbed the back of his neck. Well, if the court doesn't like Fumi, Dad and Grandma will be really mad. Sora wrapped her arms around her knees. Look, you need to trust that Yua isn't going to push you in a path that they won't be able to help you with, said Hawks. I'll be filing my own papers as well. It will be like a joint case or something. What is the contingency plan if this doesn't work? Tokoyami asked. Contingency plan? Hawks blinked. If the court doesn't allow this, then what will happen? There is no way I can send Sora back with them. In fact, I can't send Sora back to my family at all. Now, Dad isn't there, my mom is wasted, and my grandmother is probably the only one who noticed she was gone. As Tokoyami talked, Sora dug her hair into her brother's side. Tokoyami wrapped his arm around the small girl and stroked her feathers. If I'm not there to protect her, then they will retaliate. Hawks ran his hand through his hair. What do you want me to say, Tokoyami? I can't make the court say yes. I can tell you there is a large probability if this won't move past the conciliation portion because we have data proving neglect. It wouldn't make sense for a judge to agree for you to go back with either parent. What can I do to prove this to you? Silence fell as Tokoyami took the time to think. Shouldn't it be my lone decision? Sora will be impacted by this as well. Hawks nodded. Okay, so Sora needs to spend time with you before deciding if you would be a good guardian for us. Hawk clapped his hands together. Done. If she doesn't feel comfortable, then we need another solution, Tokoyami declared. Including the idea that I drop out of school to make sure Sora is safe at home. Hawks raised an eyebrow. He could see now how serious Tokoyami was on making sure Sora was safe. He would give up being a hero just to protect her. It was stupid, but honorable. And if she does feel comfortable, you will file the case, said Hawks. Tokoyami nodded in agreement. Hawks smiled. Then it's a deal. Sora poked her head up. Would you come too, Fumi? No, Tokoyami shook his head. You need to get your opinion without me there. You can trust Hawks. Hawks knelt beside Sora. Don't worry, my little red. I look after my birds. We've already had some alone time together. Sora pushed off Tokoyami and dropped to the floor. She stepped up to Hawks, and in swift movement, wrapped her arms around Hawks' neck in an embrace. Please don't let anything worse happen. I don't like worrying Fumi. Hawks smiled and gently wrapped his arms around her. I'll take care of you too, don't worry. He looked up at Tokoyami. The teen had a worried look on his face. I really will. How is tomorrow for the whole day? That soon? Tokoyami was shocked. Shouldn't it get approved by Aizawa? I'll take care of that, Hawk said with a wave of his hand. He removed Sora from his neck and bopped the end of her beak. And you, my little red bird, should get some sleep so we can have an exciting day. Okay, she squeaked. Hawks saluted two children and left the room. Tokoyami made sure to lock the door as he left. He then turned out the lights and crawled on the bed with his sister, falling asleep faster than he had any other night. Sora woke up, and the room was still dark. She looked at the clock to see that it was 3 a.m. She turned her head toward her brother, who was lost in a deep sleep. She sighed. Sora needed to use the bathroom. The small girl could have woken her brother up. He would have gladly walked her down to the bathroom, but as much as he tried to hide it, Sora knew when her brother was stressed. She didn't like causing him trouble, so as carefully and quietly as possible, Sora pulled herself out from Tokoyami's grip and crawled out of the bed. She tiptoed to the door and out into the hallway. Once the bedroom door was closed, Sora realized how big the dormitory really was. The hallways were long, dark, and narrow. She gulped as she ventured towards the elevator. Pressing the button was a tad challenging, but on her tippy toes, she managed to open the doors and send herself to the main floor. She exhaled as she stepped out of the elevator. She didn't remember this floor being so dark. Where is she supposed to go? Sora hesitantly glanced down each side before choosing a direction. If she kept walking, she would find the bathroom, right? 10 minutes may not seem like much time to an adult, but to a young girl who just wanted to find the bathroom, it was an eternity. Her eyes began to water. Sora didn't know where she was. Suddenly she bumped into something. It was hard yet warm. She fell to the ground and began to sniffle, wiping at her eyes with her hands. Whoa, hey there, didn't see you. A bright, cheerful voice said. The hall light turned to on review that Sora had run into the leg of Kirishima. Sora stared at the red-haired teen. Could he be trusted? He was Bakugu's friend. I'm sorry. Kirishima squatted in front of Sora. He flashed his sharp and pointy teeth at her. It's no big deal. I was just coming down to get something to eat. Extra weight lifting is kicking my butt. He laughed before reaching a hand to the girl. What are you doing down here? I was looking for the bathroom, Sora whispered. She grabbed Kirishima's hand and stood up with him. Good news. We're both heading in the same direction. Why don't I show you where we are heading, and then, if you want, you can join me for a snack. You like beef, right? Sora nodded, and Kirishima quickly led her to the bathrooms. Sora emerged from the restroom and walked over to Kirishima. He had warmed up some fried noodles with beef in a pan, and he split the portions onto 2 plates. "Here you go," Kirishima said, handing the girl the plate. He walked over to the couch and took a seat. Sora followed, accepting assistance when she couldn't quite climb up on the cushion with a plate in her hand. Finally, comfortable, she carefully navigated the noodles and beef into her mouth. Sora's eyes lit up. "Yummy." "I know, right," Kirishima spoke with a mouth full. "Bakugo cooks this like once a week, and he usually have leftovers for the week. Whenever I'm hungry, I sneak down and eat some." "Bakugo made this?" Sora asked. "Yep." "Wow. He really is a much better person than Dad." "Why is that?" "Dad says cooking is a woman's job. Whoever his girlfriend is usually has to make food if they spend the night." She looked up at Kirishima. "That's not normal, is it?" "Well, Kirishima quickly filled his mouth to stall for thought. It didn't fool Sora. "It's okay if you don't want to tell me. That usually means it's not normal." Sora sighed. "That's what all the teachers normally do." Kirishima swallowed with a large gulp. "That's not very manly of your teachers." "I don't really know how to respond. Bakugo is honestly just great at everything. Comparing him to anything or anyone is a really hard thing. The truth is Bakugo is usually better than most people at everything, so he's not the best standard of normal." Sora nodded. "I really like Bakugo. He's like a second Fumi." Kirishima laughed. "I'm glad you feel that way." "Do you like Bakugo?" Sora asked. Kirishima's face flushed at the question. "Well, of course. Bakugo is the manliest dude I know. He's also one of the most passionate." Kirishima hopped up into a manly pose. His fists were closed and punched the air as he talked. "He is going to be one of the best heroes out there. You can tell. I hope to be right there with him." Sora hummed with agency. The finished eating and Kirishima took care of the dishes. "Let's get you back to bed, okay?" Sora nodded. "I'm starting to see why Fumo likes it here." "Oh," Kirishima hit the elevator call button. "And why is that?" "Everyone is just nice." Kirishima smiled. "That's part of being a hero, kiddo." The elevator doors closed, and the two head upstairs for bed. "You are being quite irrational," Aizawa told Hawks at the gates to Yua. It was 8 in the morning. The winged hero decided to arrive at the gate to get the small girl. Aizawa has seen how Sora behaved around Hawks earlier that week. She seemed to enjoy the young man's company. He wasn't worried about the girl. He was more worried about Hawks. At 22 years of age, did he really understand what it means to be a guardian? "You're too uptight, Eraser," Hawks said. "I'm going to have a wonderful day with that little red bird." "You do realize she is a child. You can't just take her places you want to go. This isn't like a date." Hawks laughed. "You are too much. You know that? Of course, I'm going to take her to a place that kids love, the carnival." Aizawa stopped in his place. "You're taking her somewhere that public. You will cause a huge racket being there. That kid isn't used to that kind of attention. You think too little of the public. They will awe over how cute she is and then move on." "I have a good relationship with my fans." Aizawa sighed. "How can the number 2 hero be so naive? Tell me this. Do you have a contingency plan if you need to do some hero work? I don't know, like another Namu attack. That happened the last time you were out in public." Hawks stumbled in his steps. "That won't happen." "How can you be so sure?" "Shit. I didn't think about how it would look to the league what I'm doing." "I'm an idiot," Hawks thought. "Man, you are being a real downer. Look, I just want to show this little bird that I'm a safe adult. Whatever I gotta do, I will do." "I hope so," mumbled Aizawa. "You've agreed to be a parent." Yeah, it will be fine. My paternal instincts are impeccable," Hawks said. "I hope so," said Aizawa, handing Hawks a small paper with a phone number on it. "Don't hesitate to call, for Sora and Tokoyami's sake." Hawks pocketed the number and gave thumbs up. "You got it, Chief." Tokoyami could tell that Sora had on a brave face as she sat patiently in the main room of the dorms. Tokoyami looked at the bag he had packed for Sora. He had packed clothes, snacks, lighters, and her music. There was a steady feeling of uneasiness filling his stomach. Tokoyami couldn't help but think about all the times Hawks yelled at him for being too slow and just leaving him behind. Would he do that to Sora? "Hey, Tokoyami. Hey, Sora." A cheerful voice croaked. Tokoyami looked up and saw Tsuyu standing behind the couch. "Good morning, Tsu." "What are you two up to this morning?" Tsuyu asked. "Sora is going out," Tokoyami said. "Oh, Ribbit. Where are you going, Sora? Sora shrugged, but didn't look up from her coloring. I don't know where Hawks is taking me. Hawks? Tsuyu repeated. Yes, me, Hawks cheered as he entered the dorm along with Aizawa. Where is my fellow red bird? Sora rapidly scribbled on her paper before picking it up and running it over to Hawks. Look, it's you. Hawks took the picture with a smile. Wow, it is me. I can't wait to hang this up at home. Tokoyami brought the packed bag over to Hawks. Here is everything she may need for today. I threw in some extra lighters for her in case she gets hurt. Hawks took the bag, swung it over his shoulder. Great. We are going to have a fabulous day. Right, Sora? Sora glanced at Tokoyami. She could sense his appreciation. She didn't want to let her brother down. She nodded. Right. Hawks grabbed Sora's hand and pulled her towards the door. We will see you later, Fumikage. He picked up Sora. Red, have you ever flown before? Like on an airplane? Sora asked. Hawks laughed. No, like a bird. She shook her head no, and Hawks smiled. Well, you are about to. Hold on tight. Hawks spread open his wings as he held the girl tightly against his chest. He ran out the doors, flapped his wings, and soared into the sky. Tokoyami stared longingly after the pair. Aizawa places a hand on Tokoyami's shoulder. It will be fine, he assured his student. I hope so, said Tokoyami. If it makes you feel any better, I'm willing to take you both in if Hawks doesn't pan out. Tokoyami smiles. Thank you, sensei. Aizawa removed his hand and placed both in his pocket. Go do something to keep your mind off things. It's the weekend, after all. Aizawa walked out of the dorm, leaving Tokoyami with a very patient and quiet Tsuyu. So, Shoji kissed you, the frog girl stated. Tokoyami recoiled before turning around. How did you know that? Shoji was acting a little odd at breakfast, Ribbit. So, I asked him what was on his mind, and he kind of just said it. Oh, I hope it wasn't a troubling experience for him, said Tokoyami, rubbing the back of his neck. He was more worried about you, to be quite honest, Tsuyu said, putting a finger to her chin. I told him it was nice, said Tokoyami. Is that really the response someone wants after their first kiss? I'm the wrong person to ask, Tsu, said Tokoyami. You realize he just confessed his feelings to you, right? Tsuyu asked. That froze Tokoyami. In all honesty, he hadn't truly processed what had happened in that moment. Now that he thought about it, there had many clear signs lead to this moment. The confession of sexuality. Shoji staying with him in the hospital. He held his hand. That kiss had been in the works whether Tokoyami was aware. Dark shadow popped out of Tokoyami's chest. Do you need to sit? Tokoyami shook his head. I'm just processing. Ribbit. Tsuyu was blushing on the couch. You really have been focused on Sora if you didn't think a kiss was a confession. I'm embarrassed for you. Thank you, Tsu, Tokoyami said sarcastically. So, what are you going to say to Shoji? Tsu asked. Say, Tokoyami repeated. What do you mean say? Well, Ribbit, do you reciprocate his feelings? I'm not sure, Tokoyami questioned. I've never really felt comfortable enough to even consider a relationship. Well, at least you have something to think about while Sora is gone. Tsuyu's tongue poked out from her mouth. Thanks. Tokoyami glared and began to walk away. Tokoyami wasn't watching where he was walking and ran straight into someone. Watch it, Bakugo yelled. Apologies, Bakugo. I was distracted by someone. Tokoyami shot another glare at Tsuyu. Bakugo growled as he looked around the room. Where's Pipsqueak? She's actually out for the day, Tokoyami said slightly grim. Out? Who the fuck took her out? Hawks, Tokoyami states. Bakugo's eyes widen. This part of your guardian bullshit situation? Tokoyami nodded. TSC, fine. She better come back fine. My sentiments exactly, agreed Tokoyami. Bakugo began to walk away. He stopped at the door. You're doing nothing else today, right? I'm going to be at the gym. Stop by, and I'll help you with strength building. Your arms are too tiny to be hero. Bakugo exited the dorm. Tokoyami states as the blonde left. What just happened? Tokoyami thought. Bakugo just called you weak and tiny, Dark Shadow cackled from within. Tokoyami, Tsuyu said, interrupting his thoughts. Did Bakugo just ask you to the gym? Yes, said Tokoyami. And you don't find that odd? Tsuyu asked. Tokoyami thought about what Dark Shadow said. He called me tiny. Tokoyami sighed. He stared at his arms. He had been working out with such vigor, yet he was still so small. Perhaps I should join him. Ribbit. It's funny when you're self-conscious, Suyu teased. Shut up, Tokoyami said, storming off to his room. Sora stared at the crowd of people with excitement. She squeezed Hawk's hand so tight as they stood at entrance of the carnival. Are we going here? Yep, said Hawks. We are going to have so much fun. I've never been to the carnival before, said Sora. Really? Then what did you and that brother of yours do for fun? Hawks asked. Fumi and I would sing. He would cook for me. He also read to me. Sometimes when he picked me up from school, we would go play at an arcade before getting dinner. Sora said. Did you not eat dinner at home? Hawks asked. Mom doesn't cook, and Dad's girlfriend only cooks when she spends the night, Sora explained. They were really noisy at night, and it made me really uncomfortable. Mia always says touches Dad the way Grandma would try to touch me or Fumi. She made similar comments about Dad as well. Hawks winced and grabbed a hold of the small girl's hand. This young girl spoke about this so casually. Well, maybe when you've gone to one of these, Fumikage can take you out more. That would be fun. Sora skipped alongside Hawks as they walked through the entrance. Guests turned around and waved at Hawks. Phones were taken out, and flashes of cameras filled the air. People began to yell at Hawks to smile and look at him. Sora gripped Hawks' hand tightly. Why is everyone watching us? Well, when you are with the number 2 hero, you have to expect some attention. No one will hurt you. Just stay by my side and keep a hold of my hand, Hawks instructed. Sora did so as she and Hawks walked past a large crowd. Girls were cheering and screaming. Sora's grip tightened and tightened. People became adventurous and began crowding around them, halting their walk, throwing papers and pens in his face to sign. Hawks smiled brightly and signed a few papers and pictures shoved in his face. Sora grabbed onto Hawks' leg and began to shake. Hawks felt the trembles and looked down. The girl was clearly frightened. He frowned. Maybe this wasn't a good decision, Hawks thought. Hawks stuck his hand out towards the crowd. Excuse me, everyone. As wonderful as it is that you are all excited to see me, I am here with someone very special to me. If you would please give us the time and consideration to just be 2 normal birds, just having a great time at the carnival, I would appreciate it. The people in the crowd began to mumble. Someone pointed to Hawks' legs. They seemed to notice Sora hiding. The people nodded and slowly turned away, leaving Hawks and Sora at peace. Hawks placed his hand on Sora's head. They will give us space now, don't worry. Are you sure? Sora's frightened voice bounced against Hawks' chest. He squared down beside the girl. I'm very sure. Sometimes people don't know they are doing something that makes you uncomfortable. They don't know to stop unless you tell them. He moved his hand from Sora's head to her shoulder. I need you to do the same thing. I don't know you as well as I'd like to yet. That means if something or someone is bothering you, you need to tell me, okay? Sora stares into Hawks' large brown eyes. They were so kind and sincere. She nodded her head. Okay. Fantastic. Hawks stood up and clapped his hands. Let's go have some fun. The pair ventured through the crowd. They played carnival games, rode rides, and laughed as the day went on. Hawks won Sora a large stuffed rabbit by successfully placing rings on a variety of bottles. Of course, he missed the spirit of the contest and used a few feathers to guide each ring. But nobody was going second-guess the number 2 hero's method. They stopped for candied apples and looked for a place to sit and eat. Carnivals are fun, Sora declared. The stuffed rabbit flopped in her arms. It was almost too large for her to walk, almost. Hawks laughed as the pair stopped at a bench. I'm glad you had fun. Sora tossed the rabbit on the ground and grabbed onto the wooden bench to pull herself. Ouch. Hawks looked down at the girl's hands. They were bleeding. Red, what happened? He moved the 2 candied apples to one hand and reached for the first aid kit on his belt. The wood is splintery, Sora explained. She reached at her hand and plucked out the wooden shards with her fingers. She winced with each pluck, eyes watering over hands. Kid, stop. You're going to. Hawks was cut off as he watched the tears from Sora's eyes hit her hands. The blood stopped. The skin began to close immediately. Tiny splinters that she missed were pushed out of her skin. Sora wiped the blood on her pants. All done. Can I have my apple now? Hawks nodded and handed the child the treat. She happily nipped at the fruit. Hawks just stared, impressed. You really are something special, Red. Hawks looked up, opening his mouth to take a bite of his apple, when he caught sight of someone staring at him from the far edge of the crowd. The man was tall. He had black hair and bright blue eyes. his arms and face covered in dark purple scars. Staples lined his mouth and the collar of his neck. Dabai, Hawks thought. The villain nodded at Hawks and turned away. Shit. What is he thinking? I need to find him. Hawks moved his head to see Sora still munching. He couldn't drag her after Dabai, but he needed to move, fast. His eyes flashed up to the nearby restroom building. Hey, Sora. I need to go to the bathroom. It is right there. He pointed to the bathroom. I can't take you in with me, and it also looks like you are really enjoying that apple. Can you be a good girl and stay here while I'm in there? I won't be gone any longer than 5 minutes. Sora nodded as she took another bite. Hawks smiled. Great. Here, hold my apple too. If it is longer than 5 minutes, you can eat it. Hawks raced behind the building before shooting off as fast as he could in the direction Dabai went. He had to be fast. The hero took sharp turns right, left, right. Finally, he saw the villain standing in front of a black portal. Cute kid, Dabai spoke coolly. I didn't realize you were such a caregiver. Look, the kid doesn't have anything to do with what we are doing, Hawk said. Dabai smiled. But she could be so useful. I saw what those tears could do. We could use someone good with healing, and I know many people that are good at making kids cry. He placed one foot into the vortex. Later. The portal closed, leaving Hawks in a panic. No. Hawks stomped his feet. He really didn't think all of this through. What was he supposed to do with Sora? Sora! Hawks looked at the time on his phone. He had been gone for 3 minutes. He needed to hurry back. Hawks rushed back as fast as he could. He walked out from behind the bathroom to see Sora kneeling away from him doing something. He kept over to the small girl. Hey, Red, I'm back. The small girl turned to him, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry. Hawks looked at the ground. He was in her hand was his candied apple covered in diets and rocks. Sora's hands were stick and covered with dirt. He grabbed the stick from her and plugged a hand on her head. It's just an apple. It is no big deal. It is a big deal, Sora cried. What if I keep doing things like this? You won't like me. Then you won't want to take care of me and few me. Whoa, little bird, calm down. Hawks pulled the girl into a hug. A dirty apple wouldn't make me not want to adopt you. I'm doing this. He laughed. Man, I've been worried you wouldn't like me. That's pretty funny, right? Sora nodded against Hawk's shoulder. He moved her head up from her. You know, I think we started too big. How about I show you where I go when I'm not being a hero? We can order pizza, play a game, and do something quiet. Sound good? Sora whipped her eyes and snuggled. That sounds good. Hawks smiled. Let's get going. He picked up the girl, spread his wings, and flew towards home. Tokoyami stared at his reflection in the mirror over his dresser. He wore a large t-shirt with baggy shorts. He raised his arm up and sighed. The shirt hole exposed part of his torso. How could someone like this? He asked with a melancholic tone. What are you talking about? Dark Shadow said, flying out of the teen's back. Look at you. I am. Bakugo is right. I am tiny. Are you really fretting over that, Fumikage? Tokoyami hung his head. He pulled the shirt over his head. I'm just going to wear my US sweats. You are over-paranoid, Dark Shadow commented as Tokoyami got dressed. Tokoyami threw on his sweatpants and matching zip-up jacket over a black tank top. I feel weird, knowing people will be looking at me. That people may be thinking about me. Dark Shadow cooed and placed its head under his master's chin. Are you that uncomfortable knowing that Shoji has feelings for you? I'm not sure, Tokoyami admitted. I will confess, I enjoyed his kiss. It was kind. I felt my body warm from it. That should be a good sign, right? Dark Shadow asked. Tokoyami shook his head. What if the next time it doesn't feel that way? Tokoyami gently scratches under the Shadow's chin. What if next time it feels like all the others? I don't. Tokoyami's voice faded as swallowed a sob. I don't want to fear my best friend like I fear my grandmother. Dark Shadow nodded. How will you know if you don't try? It's not like I can initiate, Dark Shadow. Tokoyami sighed and patted Dark Shadow's head. He returned within Tokoyami's chest. Tokoyami adjusted his jacket before heading out the door to the gym. When Tokoyami arrived at the gym, he froze in the doorway. Inside, he saw Bakugo bench pressing several large weights. Kirishima stood behind him, spotting and encouraging him. That away, Bakubro. Just 2 more reps. Shut up, shitty hair, Bakugo grunted. He managed his 2 other reps before. Kirishima grabbed the bar and pulled it up on the rest. Bakugo sat up and whipped his head. Red eyes met red eyes as Bakugo took a swig from a water bottle. "Took you long enough," Bakugo said to Tokoyami. Kirishima waved. "Hey, Tokoyami." Bakugo eyed Tokoyami's attire. "TSC. You wore long sleeves to lift. You really don't know what you're doing." Tokoyami flinched. Great. More reason for him to feel self-conscious. "I don't normally lift weights. I do more push-ups and use my body's natural weight." Kirishima patted Tokoyami on the back. "Don't take anything he says personally. Bakugo is a beast at strength training." "Exactly. I'm the expert. So, do everything I say, and we won't have issues." Bakugo pointed to Tokoyami's sweatshirt. "Take that off and come over to the bench. I need to figure out your max." Tokoyami winced at the idea of removing his jacket. "Can I not lift with my jacket?" "Not if you want to have a good workout." "Don't be a bitch. Let's go." Bakugo began removing weight from the bars he was using. "Just remove it. He already knows you're tiny," Dark Shadow said from within. Tokoyami couldn't argue with that and unzipped his jacket. He balled it up and tossed it along the side of the wall. He walked over to Bakugo, lay down on the bench, and readied himself for his workout. Bakugo's weightlifting was intense. It was 2 hours of finding his max, then doing as many reps as possible. By the end, Tokoyami's entire body felt sore. Kirishima must have felt the same way. "Damn. I don't know if I'll be able to lift my arms for the rest of the day. Someone needs to make sure you stay stupid strong," Bakugo mumbled. "Ha. Yeah," Kirishima turned to Tokoyami. "How are you doing, man?" "I cannot believe I still have my arms," Tokoyami said with a small smile. "You're more toned than I thought you'd be," Kirishima commented, punching Tokoyami in the arm slightly. "Thanks," Tokoyami grunted. Dark Shadow poked out of his master's back and peered over Tokoyami's shoulder. "See? There was nothing to worry about." Bakugo cocked an eyebrow. "What do you have to be worried about?" Tokoyami cringed and cursed Dark Shadow. Dark Shadow didn't seem to care. "He's been all frazzled since you said his arms were tiny." "Dark Shadow," Tokoyami growled. "TSC, your arms are tiny. It's nothing to get all riled up about." Bakugo scoffed. Tokoyami folded his arms and clenched his jaw. Kirishima could see he was trying to hide how uncomfortable he was. "Is this at all related to what happened with Shoji?" Kirishima asked. "Did everyone know?" Tokoyami exchanged an expression of shock with Kirishima. Bakugo cocked an eyebrow. "You're not arguing, so that sounds like a yes." "Do you not like Shoji?" Kirishima prodded. "Is that why you feel so uncomfortable?" "Why would liking or not liking the octopus make him uncomfortable?" Bakugo asked. "Dude, did you not pay attention at breakfast when Shoji confessed to kissing Tokoyami?" Tokoyami slapped a hand to his face as Kirishima spoke. Bakugo was still not impressed. He turned to Tokoyami. "Okay, octopus kissed you. Just tell him you don't like him and move on. It's not that simple." Tokoyami took a seat on the ground. This seemed like it was going to be a much longer conversation. "You do like him," Bakugo states. "Just tell him that and move on." "Really, dude?" Kirishima said. "What?" Tokoyami sighed. "It's not that either." Kirishima sat down beside Tokoyami. "It's cool, man. We don't judge. Was the kiss bad?" Tokoyami shook his head. Why did everyone become so interested in his private life? The kiss was nice. "Then why is this so dramatic?" Bakugo yelled. "Because what if the next kiss isn't nice?" Tokoyami mumbled. Kirishima blinked. "You mean you are afraid the next one will be worse?" Bakugo snaked Kirishima on the head. "No, dumbass." As Kirishima rubbed his head, Bakugo turned to Tokoyami. "Did that woman do the same thing to you as she's doing to your sister?" Tokoyami nodded. "It was the first kiss that didn't make me feel horrible." Bakugo scoffed. "Octopus has no idea how confused you are. You either need to move past it or confront it." Tokoyami nodded. "Thanks. It was a nice perspective to hear. Remove the spectrum of options." Tokoyami could either confront Shoji or move on and forget it. Bakugo walked out the door. "I'm going to shower. I feel like I'm out of the loop." Kirishima stood up. "It's time to hit the showers." He extended a hand to Tokoyami. The bird-headed teen took Kirishima's hand and followed him to the locker room showers. When Tokoyami left the locker room, he was shocked by what he saw. Bakugo was standing in front of Shoji with a dark scowl. It didn't slip past Bakugo that Tokoyami was now out. Bakugo pointed towards Tokoyami. You made him feel weird. You can fix it and fix it now. I'm tired of only hearing about this bullshit. The blonde walked away, leaving both Shoji and Tokoyami in an awkward stare. Tokoyami, Shoji's tentacle mouth spoke. Shoji, Tokoyami started. Let's go somewhere more private. Shoji nodded and followed Tokoyami out to the courtyard. They each sat down by a large tree. Tokoyami folded his arms and crossed his legs. He wasn't sure how to approach this. I should apologize, Shoji said. I should have. Shoji, stop. You don't need to apologize. Tokoyami took a deep breath. But I made you uncomfortable, Shoji said. I don't want our friendship to crumble because I have no impulse control. You did not make me uncomfortable, Tokoyami mumbled. Dark shadow came out from his master's chest. He nodded his head in encouragement. Tokoyami nervously began to pet his quirk. You did the exact opposite. My grandmother had made me uncomfortable years ago. Every act of intimacy would scare me. What you did was nice. That was different. It had never felt so good to be so close with someone. Shoji's eyes were still concerned. Then why does it appear that you are so shaken by it? Tokoyami exhaled long and deep before breathing in the strength to say his fear. What if the next kiss isn't as nice? What if you kiss me and I begin to tremble like I did when I was so young? I don't want to fear you. Tokoyami tilted his head back. He let the heaviness of his worries fill the air. Shoji was pensively silent. Do you want to try and see what happens? Shoji asked. Tokoyami's head whipped to look to Shoji. What? Shoji stared back with total sincerity. What if I kiss you again? Then you will know. Tokoyami was shocked. This was not how he expected Shoji to react. He thought his friend would be mad or hurt. View this as a warning that he was damaged. This wasn't a welcoming sign. How could Shoji continue to be so caring to him? Why are you doing this? Doing what? Shoji asked. Being so kind, Tokoyami said with frustration. Can't you see that I am incapable of being cared for? Shoji reached over and grabbed Tokoyami's hand. That's not true. It is. I'm tarnished and disgusting. I look at myself in the mirror and my skin crawls. After she's done so much, I feel spoiled like a rotten apple. Why would you settle for bad fruit? Shoji's grip tightened. You are not bad fruit. You are a victim. And you are also someone afraid of the unknown. I'm not going to try to push you into anything that makes you uncomfortable. I'm just trying to help you in the only ways I know how. Fumikage, Dark Shadow said. You have to start to heal. Shoji is just trying to help. It can't hurt. What if I begin to fear him? I don't want to be afraid of best friend. Tokoyami lowered his head. It seems to me you already are afraid, Dark Shadow commented. Tokoyami thought about that. He was acting a bit cowardice towards Shoji. Shoji was offering. He did not hate Tokoyami. He didn't view him in the same as Tokoyami saw himself. Dark Shadow really knew him so well. Okay, Tokoyami whispered. Let's try. Shoji jumped. Are you sure, Tokoyami? Tokoyami nodded his head. He exhaled, trying to relax. Shoji intertwined his fingers with Tokoyami's. The larger teen's thumb gently rubbed over the back of Tokoyami's hand. Tokoyami closed his eyes, focused on Shoji's hand. Perhaps he assumed Shoji would have counted down, or that Shoji would have given any kind of warning. No, Shoji's tentacle mouth pressed its lips gently on the side of Tokoyami's beak. Tokoyami's eyes popped open. It was a short moment, and as Shoji awaited some sort of reaction from his friend, Tokoyami's mind swam with feelings of warmth and happiness. Dark Shadow began to dance around. See? It was nice. Tokoyami smiled and looked at Shoji. It was. It was just as nice as the first. I'm glad, Shoji said with a large grin. At that moment, Tokoyami's stomach growled. Shoji laughed at the sound. I'm hungry as well. Would you like to get lunch together? I would like that a lot, Tokoyami said. The two stood up and walked to the cafeteria. Hawks certainly had a large home for a single living male. His living room was rather large. A giant flat screen was mounted on the wall across from a large L-shaped sofa. Hawks sat flipping through channels on the television, while Sora lay asleep on the couch beside him. The entire outing to the carnival had wiped her out. True to his word, Hawks ordered some pizza. Now he sat waiting for it to arrive. Hawks was more or less using the television for a meditative purpose. His mind continued to wander back to his encounter with Dabai. He wouldn't actually go after a kid, would he? No, he will use this as a way of control. She is just extra insurance. I can't alter anything he wants from me. This really pushed me back from getting to meet their boss. Ding. The doorbell rang, and Hawks walked to the door to get the pizza. He paid the man and slammed the door. Sora was startled awake by the slamming door. No, Sora yelled, and she huddled underneath the large back pillow. Pizza's here. Hawks walked back over to the couch as he tore out a piece from the box. He placed the pizza on the couch cushion between himself and Sora. Come eat, he said while chewing. Sora shook her head. A small squeak came out of her beak. She dove deeper behind the pillow. Hawks cocked an eyebrow. What's going on, Red? I'm sorry, she mumbled. Sorry? For what? Hawks moved a bit closer to Sora. Suddenly, his nose became aware of what had happened. The smell of urine overwhelmed his senses. Shit, he said. Hawks realized that he shouldn't have cursed. The moments following involved Sora wailing. Hawks could only stare. What was he supposed to do? How could he fix this? Red, he tried to speak over her. Red, it's okay. I'm sorry I cursed. I shouldn't have cursed. Now you won't want Fumi 'cause of me, Sora gasped out as she began to hyperventilate. Hawks waved his hands in front of him frantically. No, 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 no. I'm not upset. I'm just not used to taking care of other people. Damn, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what to do. Sora hugged her knees and rocked. She sniffled. Grandma makes me take a bath. You probably do need to get cleaned up, Hawks said. Can I take a bath alone? Sora's voice was soft. Hawks could hear the fear. Of course. I don't know much about giving kids baths, Hawks said. He saw the girl stop rocking. He must have said something right. Come here, let me show you the bathroom. He stuck out his hand to the small girl. Sora took it and followed Hawks to the bathroom. After filling the bathtub with water, Hawks left Sora to clean herself. Don't drown, he instructed as he left the room. He walked into the living room, running his hands through his hair. His eyes fell on the wet spot on the couch. How do you clean a couch cushion? He asked himself. He looked to the bag Tokoyami packed. Hopefully Tokoyami packed an extra pair of clothes. He unzipped the backpack. The first thing he saw was a bottle labeled Kids and Pets Accident Remover. Hawks frowned. Tokoyami knew this was a possibility, he thought. That must mean this happens quite a bit. He dug through the bag and found some spare clothes for Sora. He easily left the clothes in a place where Sora could get to them, while getting a towel to clean up the couch. Come out when you are done, Hawks called to Sora. I will keep the pizza warm. He went back to the living room and followed the instructions on the bottle, hoping to remove the stain. 20 minutes later, Sora stuck her head out around the corner. Hawks smiled and patted the spot on the couch next to her. Hey, Red, I waited for you. Pizza is still here. You're not mad? Sora squeaked. I can still have pizza. Why wouldn't you still get pizza? Hawks shrugged. It isn't something that can't be cleaned up. Dad would normally send me away when he was mad. He doesn't like to see me when he is mad. I just go to my room and stay there until the next day. Did I seem mad? Hawks asked. Sora nodded her head. Hawks sighed. He thought about what happened and how he reacted. Is it 'cause I cussed? Sora paused but slowly nodded her. Hawks felt his heart sink. He didn't mean to scare the girl. He also certainly didn't want to appear like her dad. An even worse thought crept in Hawks' mind. If he tried to get out of this custody thing, Sora would blame herself. There is no way he could explain the complicated situation he was in with the League of Villains. If he wanted this little girl to feel better, he was going to have to take care of her. He opened the box of pizza. He had taken the tie to grab plates and used one to place a slide on it. Come eat this, he said, standing up. I'll be right back. Hawks walked away and entered his bedroom. On his bed sat an old Endeavor doll. He picked it up and stared at the novelty toy for a moment. I need to be strong, Endeavor. I need your help. He walked back out of the room. Sora sat on the couch. She carefully placed the piece in the side of her beak to take a bite. Hawks walked over and sat down beside her. Sora stopped and stared at him, as if waiting for him to yell again. Her eyes were wide, and her grip on the pizza a bit shaky. Hawks cleared his throat and set the Endeavor doll down on his knee. Do you know who this is? That's Endeavor, Sora said. Hawks nodded his head. Yes. This is our current #1 hero. To me, he has always been the #1 hero. even when All Might was still around. Do you want to know why? Sure, Sora said, swallowing her pizza. She didn't quite understand what Hawks wanted, but he wasn't yelling, so it must be okay. When I was young, I was able to fly around faster than anyone. I never really thought about what it meant to have such freedom to fly and move quickly. One day, I saw a semi-truck and a family's car on the course to collision. They couldn't move fast enough to react, but I could. I flew in and got everyone out before the cars collided. That's when a hero was called. Hawks stared at the doll with a soft smile. Endeavor showed up and found out that I was the one who saved the family. He was so impressed. He declared I must be a hero. He provided for me and my family, excelling me through school. I moved as fast as I could. My family took advantage of this. They used me and Endeavor money to get whatever they wanted. They thought that the hero life would make their lives easier. They never wanted to work to make things better for the world. So, I disowned them when I became a pro hero and could provide for myself. I have been Hawks ever since. No family attached. I have been able to accomplish great things. I never would have seen that potential in myself if it hadn't been for Endeavor. So, you had a bad family, too? Sora asked. Hawks nodded. I did. And if it weren't for someone else seeing my potential, I would have never been able to be as successful as I am now. When I look at Fumikage, I feel like I see the same kind of potential that perhaps Endeavor saw in me. I even see it when I look at you, Red. He patted the girl on the head. I wouldn't be where I am without someone else giving me the opportunity. Do you see what I am saying? Maybe, Sora said questioningly. I'm saying that I'm going to make sure that I give you and Fumikage the best opportunity for a better life. And if that is with me, then that is with me. Sora stared at Hawks in silent contemplation. She put her pizza down, and then stood up on the couch. She wrapped her arms tightly around the hero's neck. I'm glad you like us. I like you too. You're a much better dad. Red. Hawks wrapped his arms around the girl and hugged her back. You really are something special. A week passed since Sora's outing with Hawks. Hawks had been trying very hard to go above and beyond for the two birds. He now sat in a conference room, beside Tokoyami, staring at a stack of papers in each of their hands. And a lawyer sat before them. He pointed to a final paper with a long black pen. Finally, I need your signature here. Hawks moved fast, as usual, and took the pen assigned the paper. He placed the pen down in the paper, and slid it to the teen sitting beside him. Tokoyami picked up the pen. It felt heavier than he expected it to. With a shaky hand, he fumbled his name along the line and wrote the date. The lawyer smiled and collected the two papers. I will see to it that these are delivered. I am going to bring them to the family courts myself. The lawyer placed the papers in a large brown suitcase and closed it up. I will be in contact with you all shortly. He bowed and left the conference room. Hawks patted Tokoyami on the back. All right, our part is over. See, that wasn't too bad. Tokoyami stared at the table. On the contrary, this is the scariest part. Look, kid. There is a ton of evidence in your favor. It doesn't make sense for them to not follow through. It also didn't make sense to let my grandmother return home, yet she did. Hawks just grabbed Tokoyami's shoulder tightly. You got support. This will be fine. Tokoyami shared a weak smile. I hope you are correct. Back in his room, Tokoyami strummed at his guitar, while Sora colored. He wasn't aware, but the words he had meant to be thinking were coming off in whispers. Sora looked up from her colors. Is that another song for me? Tokoyami looked up, surprised. He didn't think his words were too loud. In a way, I suppose. Can I hear his? I want to hear it loud. She moves her arms far apart to emphasize. It's not done, Tokoyami states. I don't care. Tokoyami nodded his head and began to strum his fingers across the guitar. Embers that dance across the sky. Tell me, is there a life that is divine? And are they watching me as I fall? If I'm to spread my wings and fly. Tell me, gods, the great divine. Will you be there to catch me if I fall? Is this worth it if I just lose it all? Is flying worth the danger after all? I have taken the plunge into the night. I don't know if I'm wrong or right. And when I know, it will be too late to go back. If this was only my life, I would be fine. But who is watching my angel as she cries? Will the divine intervene if this goes wrong? All I can is apologize in this song. Tokoyami sighed as he put down the guitar. Sora frowned. That song was sad. It is, said Tokoyami. Are you sad, Fumi? Perhaps, Tokoyami acknowledged. I'm anxious about today. You signed a paper that made you sad today? Sora cocked her head. No, I signed off that I am suing Mom and Dad to release us into Hawk's care. Do you think it won't work? Hawk seems rather confident. All I can do is trust him. And trust me, you should, Hawks said from the doorway. Hawks! Sora hopped up to greet the hero with a hug. Hawks picked the girl up. Hey Red, how are you? I'm good, how are you, Hawks? Hawks laughed. I'm doing well. What are you doing? I was listening to Fumi. Would you like to go do something else? Hawks asked. Like what? Sora asked. Well, I happen to know a really good place that sells cookie dough like ice cream. Hawks smirked as he saw the girl's face light up. You can eat just cookie dough. Absolutely. Sora bounces excitedly in the hero's arms. Let's go. I was even thinking you could bring your friend Eri along. And who's the blonde guy that watches her? Oh, Mirio. Hawks smiled. Yeah, Mirio. Get those guys to join us. Maybe even old Eraserhead will want to join. What do you think, Fumikage? I think I would rather stay here, Tokoyami mumbled. Oh, come on. It will be our first family outing. It will be short and simple. Tell him to join, Red. Hawks turned Sora around to look Tokoyami in the eyes. Please, Fumi. It's cookie dough. You love cookie dough. We used to eat a whole roll of cookie dough together. Whoa, when was this? Hawks asked. Sometimes Mom would cook, and it would be horrible because she usually burned it. So, whenever she made us eat her really burnt stuff, Fumi would take me to the store, and we'd buy a container of cookie dough and eat it, Sora explained. Wow. And here I get the chance to live in the nostalgia. Stand up and get out of this room, Fumikage. I'm not letting you mope all alone. Tokoyami flinched at the paternal tone Hawks took. He glanced up. Hawks' face twitched, as if he were also surprised by the tone of his voice. Tokoyami cleared his throat. Fine. He stood up and exited his room. Sora held his hand and skipped down the hall. I'll race you to the end of the sidewalk. Sora. The white-haired Eri started to race ahead. No fair. You got a head start. Sora sprinted off behind Eri, closing the gap between the two girls. Those two really like each other, Mario said with a smile. I'm glad Eri has someone her age to play with. I'm glad Sora has a friend as well, said Tokoyami. She never had many friends. Those two just seem happy to out and about, Hawk sighed. Where is this place, Hawks? Mirio asked, looking at his watch. I promised Aizawa-sensei we would be back in an hour at the latest. It's just around the corner. Sure enough, the two girls began jumping up and down when they saw a large stand with a giant cookie on it. That's it. Everyone smiled and hoped in line. The cookie dough was worthwhile. All had cups with ice cream-shaped scoops. Hawks, Tokoyami, and Mirio had scopes of sugar and chocolate chip cookie dough flavor. The two girls took the flavor magic, a rainbow cotton candy flavor, along with a scoop of chocolate chip. The group stood, huddled together eating and enjoying their treats. Sora and Eri were making quite the mess. Cotton candy stuck to their faces. Mirio couldn't help but laugh. Mirio tapped Eri on the shoulder. Would you go get some napkins for everyone? Eri nodded and raced over to the napkin tray, carrying her treat. She took a moment to take a bite before reaching up and grabbing some of the disposable paper. That looks very yummy, sweetheart. Tokoyami froze at the sound of a very familiar and ghastly voice of an old woman. He looked up to see Eri standing next to his grandmother. The old shrew was just about as tall as Tokoyami. Her long gray hair fell down her back along a long yellow dress. She wore a large sun hat decorated with a variety of flowers. It is yummy, Eri said with a smile. Tokoyami felt his fists coil. Eri didn't know who this monster was. He had to do something. She was getting too close. Dark shadow, he yelled out, and imminently the beast popped out of Tokoyami's chest and snagged Eri in its hands before pulling her back. The shadow beast left her with Mirio, Sora, and Hawks, bringing attention to everyone in the surrounding area before disappearing back into his host's body. Sora grabbed onto Hawk's leg to hide. Grandma, she whispered. The old woman looked up and smiled. She began to walk towards Tokoyami. Oh, my goodness. I didn't expect to see my Toki. Don't come near me, Tokoyami shouted. The old woman stopped and tilted her head to see Sora standing behind Hawks. Is that my little Sora? Hero, you found my granddaughter. We've been looking for her everywhere. Don't even think about it. Tokoyami stepped forward to block the old woman's view. The old woman smiled. The shadow she cast spilled onto Tokoyami. Try as he might, the teen realized he was unable to move. Fear tightens the breath in his chest as he felt the all-too-familiar feeling of shadowy fingers and hands glaze up the insides of his legs. Even though you have grown, my little Toki, his grandmother breathed in his ear, you still make my heart go doki doki. Sora, too familiar with this situation, pulled on Hawks. Do something, she cried, pointing to the woman's shadow crawling its way across Tokoyami. Hawk's face turned to a look of horror when he saw what Sora were pointing. Fury built in him. This woman was going to take advantage of him here, and now? He couldn't believe it. Hawks pulled Sora off his leg before charging in at his frightening speed. He pushed the woman away and pressed her firmly against a nearby fence. What is the meaning of this? The grandmother gasped. I'm not an idiot. I saw what you were doing. Hawks pulled out some handcuffs and slapped them on the woman. A registered sex offender knows their boundaries. You clearly crossed those. He turned his head back towards his group. Mirio, take them back to the dorm. All of them. Hawks beat his wings and flew up in the air. Sora rushes to Tokoyami's side. She pulled on his left hand. He hadn't moved, still frozen from the touch. Fumi, she's gone. Fumi, come back. Tokoyami's body began to move. It followed Sora's lead. He gripped her hand tighter, then lifted her up into a tight, quaking embrace. Fumi? Sora's concerns bounced off her brother. He simply held her closer. She could feel his heart racing in his chest as he silently walks beside Mirio. It didn't take them much time to make it back to the Heights Alliance dorms. Upon entering, Tokoyami, sister in his arms, glided over to the nearest sofa and sat down. His arms locked in place, and he placed his head on top of Sora's. A far-off look glazed his eyes. Tokoyami? Mirio shook the teen's shoulder. He didn't budge. Mirio grew concerned. He's shut down. I need to call Aizawa. Mirio pulled out his phone and began to dial. Grandma does that to him, Sora said. Whenever she did something bad happened, he shuts down. Shuts down? What the fuck? Bakugo entered the common area. Bakugo, Fumi needs help, Sora said. Bakugo, Tokoyami whispered. He moved his head up and stared at the blonde. In a robotic-like motion, Tokoyami released Sora from his arms and pushed her towards Bakugo. Go with Bakugo, he whispered. Hey, Aizawa, you need to come to class at dorms, Mirio said into the phone. Eri worriedly held onto the upperclassman hand. Fumi? Sora stood confused. She was unsure how to help her brother. She turned to Bakugo, who seemed equally confused. What the hell? Bakugo said. Tokoyami stood up. Mirio recoiled at his movement. Where are you going, Tokoyami? Shower, Tokoyami said. He walked into the bathroom. Sora walked over to Bakugo and hugged his legs. Bakugo, I'm worried. No, shit, me too, said Bakugo. What the hell happened? Ahem. Mirio glared at Bakugo, still on the phone with Aizawa. Bakugo rolled his eyes. Like they never heard it. Grandma was at the cookie dough place, said Sora. She gripped Bakugo's leg tighter. Did she touch you? Bakugo growled. Sora shook her head. Not me. Bakugo looked towards the bathroom. He could hear a shower running. Him then. Mirio looked shocked. I didn't see that. When? Is that why Hawks attacked the old woman? At that moment Hawks rushed into the dorm. His eyes darted around, landing on Sora. He eyed the blonde she was standing next to. There you are, Red. Who is this? Where is Fumikage? This is Bakugo, Sora said, hugging Bakugo's leg even tighter. And Fumi is in the shower. The shower? Hawks turned and marched straight into the bathroom. He walked into the room and saw Tokoyami, sitting against the shower while water poured down on him. Dark Shadow was nudging his master's head with his. Fumikage, stand up. Hawks ran his hands through his hair. Shit. Kid, what do I do with you? He's getting wet, Dark Shadow whined. Hawks walked over and turned the water off. Fumikage, you need to get up. Tokoyami didn't move. Instead, he wrapped his arms around his knees. Dark Shadow made soft cooing noises and nudged Tokoyami. Hawks heard footsteps. In came a tall, masked figure with multiple limbs. Tokoyami. Who are you? Asked Hawks. I'm Shoji, the multi-armed teen said. He moved over next to his slumped-over friend. Tokoyami, what happened? Tokoyami lifted his head. When he saw those caring black eyes stare back into his own, his mind snapped. Tears began to fill them. Shoji, she was there. Why was she there? Tokoyami began to cry, and the six-armed friend wrapped each one around Tokoyami. Hawks stood by the sidelines and watched his mentee cry in Shoji's arms. After a few minutes, he reached over to a towel and brought it over to Tokoyami. He pressed the cloth against the team. "Come on, kid. Let's dry you off and get you upstairs." Tokoyami wiped his face and nodded. He stood up. Hawks placed the towel over Tokoyami's shoulders. He and Shoji stood on either side of the Raven teen, then walked Tokoyami up to his room.